Okay, folks, I am calling the meeting here to order at 6:05. I think everybody got all their packets together that C-Ray had sent. And I guess we'll just go ahead and do the invocation. Anybody? We're doing, please stand. Kathy Kitchiana is going to do the invocation.
Dinan andan minihi, nicht ärgern att se käsle, nicht ärgern att izritle, benidan jonko, benati käsen cirko, ujiri which a fire bed I was on hana, ujoru lesson so unto Stevie Evan and all the honor, the glory is yours. Amen and amen.
Amen. Okay, if we can get started with roll call. Do you do that or I do that? Okay.
Okay, Jonathan Clark.
Present.
Tolbert Massey.
Present.
Gail Patchouli.
Here.
Martha Takalai.
Here.
So there is the quorum present.
Okay. All right. And then we will go to, do you want to do roll call here in the room as well? Okay, we'll start with Dr. Yutzi.
This is Lisa Yutzi. I'm here.
Kathy Kitchian, staff.
Martina Mata, president of the college.
Scott Wygant, Adult Service Clinical Coordinator at the Wellness Center.
Kenneth Chan, IT Officer.
C-Ray Cozen, Executive Assistant to the President. And to everybody else.
Okay, and if we go to approval of the minutes, this is from August 27, 2000. Oh, sorry. Approval of the agenda first. Everyone should have received this. C-Ray had sent it out to folks if anybody had any comments, corrections, updates. All right, so I will move to,
I'd like
oh
to
wait,
make a
hang
mo-
on.
I'd like to make a motion to modify the agenda. I'd like to move 4A, maybe before old business, is that? Yeah.
Okay.
Just so that we can introduce
Okay.
the new staff.
Okay, so, yeah. Okay, so we will move, under 4, new business, 4A, we'll move that to 1I, 1F. And that's the introduction of the new staff. Is that it? Any more? Okay, so I motion to approve the agenda.
Second.
Martha Lean seconds. All in favor? Aye.
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 And there's nobody else. Okay, so we will move on to the approval of minutes. This is the August 2007, 2016 agenda. This was our, I guess this was our strategic plan? Yeah.
It's the
Oh, it was a regular meeting that we had off-site over in Scottsdale. So if everybody would just take a couple of minutes to review. Oh, there's a little typo here. The only edits that I see is the numbering of the minutes. Does anybody else have any?
I don't see anything else other than that.
Okay, are you done, Martha? Okay, I will motion to approve the meeting minutes for August 27, 2016. That will include the edits of the numbering to be corrected.
I'll second.
Okay, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
I have a question.
Uh-huh.
Okay, sorry it's coming in late, but there's a portion on the minutes where it says that Jonathan was working on the mission and that he worked on and presented it, the dad values. Was
What
that
page?
Jonathan? The very last page, page 4. Was that Jonathan or was that me? Because I know I've presented it more than once.
We can say Jonathan and you. I don't know, this was a long time ago.
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh, maybe Jonathan remembers?
Jonathan, there's a question on the last page of the meeting minutes, down the last quarter page where it says, Jonathan Clark shares a vision that he came up with St. Carlos Apache College, activity on mission and vision using Jonathan Clark's example of mission that he worked on, and in that values.
Yeah, I don't believe that was me.
Yeah.
Okay. So you think that was you? Okay.
No.
Okay, so I will add to my motion that, to make the correction on page 4, to state Marthaline Takala instead of Jonathan Clark shares a vision. And then also on the next sentence, activity on mission and vision using Marthaline Takala's example instead of Jonathan Clark. No, I did adjust it to the motion. No, I don't think that, I think these are non-substantive edits. Hmm? Well, I remember this was, April had taken notes initially, and then Jonathan took notes.
So
That's correct.
Okay, so there's a question about the notes here. I believe the former regent, Nolene, had started the notes, and then Jonathan completed the notes because there's no adjournment on page 4.
I know those notes indicate that, but looking through my files, I don't have any of those notes. I was talking with C-Ray and Martha, Interpreter Baelish, on this a while ago, and I think Martha was going to look through her notes to complete this set.
Okay, so you want to go ahead and table this meeting minute?
Yeah, let's do that, and then I'll follow up with Martha, because she's looking into another set of notes as well.
Okay.
may I bring something up before we, I know we're gonna table this, but just for, so we don't miss it the next time. On page 1, number 6, if you look down, sound principals, it's the wrong principal.
And you are.
Principal, okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so we will instead have a motion to table the meeting minutes for August 27, 2016.
Second?
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
I,
Oppose? Motion passes 4-0-0. Okay, so we will go on to 4A, or 1F, or 1F. Introduction of Kenneth Chang and Kathleen Kitchian. Dr. Mata?
Thank you, Regent Julie, appreciate it. And good evening, all Regents. And I'm delighted that we were able to go forward with our meeting. I think it was really important for us as we pursue accreditation on the fast track. So I thank you again. I'm going to split this task with Dr. Yutzi because the faculty member reports to the provost. Mr. Kenneth Chan reports to me. I am delighted that he has joined us. I met him, shortly after I joined the college, and I was very impressed with you from the very beginning without even knowing your background, just because of your personality and your professionalism, your demeanor. I was very impressed. And then when I learned about your background, oh my Lord, I kept thinking, we need someone like you for this college. At this juncture, not having somebody of your caliber in such a critical role of IT, it just seemed to me that this would be a dream come true if that we could get someone like you. So I must say that the fact that we were able to interest you in applying for this position, and that you ultimately joined us, and I know it was not an easy decision. You have real good ties and a very great working relationship, and they depended a lot on you in your former role. So I thank you even more for that. And I gotta say, everybody in the institution and even outside of the institution who's had a glimpse of your impact has been very impressed, so thank you. About Kenneth Chan, one of the things that I want you to say a little bit about yourself very quickly, but I did want to point out that the fact that he earned his college degree in computer science from Stanford, and he did it with honors, and that his world, his network of closest friends and colleagues is a Silicon Valley, is not something that has been lost on people around the country. And so, and there has been no task that we have asked you to undertake related to IT that you have not been able to handle quickly and easily with extraordinary ease. And you're filling in so many roles for the institution that is, your background in marketing, the fact that you're filling in a great need for somebody that's in-house, that's an expert with our media platforms and so on. Like I said, at this juncture in the institution's development, having someone with your skills and talents in these areas is it's amazing, and you really have filled in a huge void that we couldn't go without for much longer, and you've done it with excellence, and so I thank you for that. But if you would share just a little bit about your background and apart from what I have said and what you look forward to being able to do with the institution, because part of what we wanted you to do is to use this college too for your own growth and development, and I think it's a wonderful match in that you're joining the institution at the right time in your career, and the institution is going to benefit from you, so it's a mutual benefit. So if you will share a little bit with us about that, we'd appreciate it.
Sure, I'd be happy to do so. And everyone forgive me for my voice. Apparently I'm yelling at too many people throughout the day, so I've lost my voice today. But I am really glad to be here, and I thank you for all of your time. It is an honor to be part of this effort here, and that's really one of the things that Dr. Amata, when we had our initial discussions about this opportunity, I mean, how often do you get to be part of a new accredited college, a new and rising college, and so that really captured my interest. I've been in Arizona for the past 4 years. From pretty much week 2 here, I've been employed in some capacity working on the reservation here, and prior to this, I have to admit I knew nothing about Native American culture, and it's been an eye-opening experience, and with each new venture here, my heart just continues to warm to the people here and the opportunity here to really make a difference, and that's the goal here, is to offer what I have and learn what I can here in this new environment. So yeah, this is something new. This is, apart from a short stint teaching also for Gila Community College in photography and computer arts, this is really my first time back, seriously back in higher education since I worked for Stanford University, and I did that about 10 years after I did my undergrad studies in computer science. I do have to state for the record, actually, as much as I would have liked to have graduated with honors, that is not part of my record, so let's clarify that.
It's honorable enough to graduate from Stanford, who needs more honors than that?
But really, it's so exciting to bring a little bit of Silicon Valley and just the mentality of startups and innovation and really bridging that digital divide, all of those things that I got to learn and naturally love tinkering with, to really be able to see a need here and a way to just offer myself and my services and my knowledge and passion for it here, right here. And just every position that I've held, making myself useful in Globe and San Carlos, I've seen a need for greater knowledge and mastery and use of technology, and so certainly this is a great fit for me in terms of my own interest and the things that I want to grow in, the things I want to pass on. So it's such an honor to be here to solve problems with all of you and to really build a future for the people here. So that's all very exciting. Yeah, other than that, I think one of the things that really provides me a lot of job satisfaction, I would say the factors involved there are very kind of high level. They're, do I go home every day feeling like I've done something useful with my life? Am I using the skills and gifts that God has given to me and that I've been afforded? And am I being challenged to grow? And I certainly think in all 3 aspects that has been the case here. So there's so much potential, and there's also been so much progress already. It's amazing to see. So I'm happy to be part of this high performance team, and I really hope to have much to contribute.
Thank you very much. Appreciate that. Lisa, you want to?
Great. So I feel a little weird introducing Kathy Kitchian to a group of people in San Carlos, Arizona. So I'm going to be brief but very upbeat. I'm like, what can I say that folks here don't already know more, than me. But being that this is, we're not GCC. This is a tribal college. This is one of the newer tribal colleges. It's so important that those core courses, related to the language, the culture, identity, are in place. And there was a lot of really excellent work done by the board, especially Regents Papalai, when all of this was getting started. But it comes to a certain point where it's like, okay, now we have to offer courses. We need resources for the community within the college to kind of facilitate those things. For example, we're sort of partners in other A&A grants with education and language preservation. I've been attending those meetings, but in the grand scheme of things, I am not contributing very much. I'm like, yeah, eventually we will, that sounds great. So, of course, this is definitely one of those, as we're deciding what the first faculty positions are, this position was always one of those, this has to be very fast, and we've gotten by with adjuncts for 1 semester, but that's not an ideal way to do things. And we really needed someone who knows the community, who knows the language, who brings, certain constituencies, who has a lot of respect. within the community. And, and I have to say that, people will ask, oh, who's teaching? In the past few weeks, every time I bring up Kathy's name, what I hear is, she's fantastic. Like, or she used to be my teacher. When is she teaching again? Like, in other words, like, there's definitely, and, it's been, within the past 2 weeks, because she joined us, I guess 2 weeks ago today, right? 2 weeks ago, time flies, yeah. And so, she's getting acquainted with her classes. There's now quite a bit more Apache language being spoken in our building, people visiting, and so, that's something that has been missing, There was always a place for it, there was kind of like a placeholder for it, but like now that it's there, things just feel different. And so, and each time, even adding Ken, every time we add sort of like a new person, things change in a positive way, Some of us get to take off some additional hats and hand them over to other people. But I was just so excited that, we had someone of Kathy's caliber apply for this position. I remember the interview was really outstanding. And I think, there's a genuine kind of love and commitment for the culture and the language that's what's required to build programs and curriculum. So I thought maybe Kathy could just say a few things about, why she decided to take a chance with us, like Ken did, and kind of talk about just some of her ideas.
I think you said it all.
Okay.
Well, good evening, board members. Thank you for considering me for this position. I'm really happy. I did deliberate on it for a while because I wasn't sure if I wanted to. And the more I thought about it, the more I prayed. I thought to myself, when I finally did it, like at the 8th hour, it was because I have a passion for who we are as a people. And who we are is right here in our hearts. It's being Apache. And it's being Diné, because we're related. And it's being who this gentleman is, because as people of color, we have a passion, I think, that other people don't understand. And I am climbing the ladder. I'm going north in the natural elements. And so I thought to myself, am I just going to go when I have all of this that I could share? I still can do that. So I decided to apply, and then it was approved, and I said, okay, you know what, I'm going to start. But I have 64 grandkids because I have 33 nieces and nephews. I have 64 grandkids. Very, very few of them understand the language. They don't even speak it. And I have 25 great-grandkids, again from the extended family. And so I thought about this as well, and I thought, if that's within my family, it's all over the reservation. And so I'm teaching who I can teach. But the people that are the students that are in my class, we're learning, they're learning, and they are saddened that they never had an opportunity. And it's because, we as parents and grandparents made the grave mistake of not teaching our children. Because if we lose our language, and you guys all know that, if we lose it, then we lose our stories, our prayers, our songs, everything. And I'm doing the best I can. I intend to do the best I can. I'm excited. I'm looking forward to the rest of the semester. I've talked with Mr. Kenneth Chan, right? And we'd like to work on projects together. I've always felt like we should do CDs of some type. And today we got on YouTube, someone teaching Apache on YouTube. And I was very disturbed by it because the pronunciation is not correct. And I thought, oh my gosh, this person needed a lot of help, I thought. But that's something that I'd like to do with him. And history, it has grown so much. There's so much more, and we don't have very many elders left. But to have the most exciting thing about this job is to have the support. Because I worked at a situation one time where I didn't have the support. And it was sad, you know, because I couldn't do anything, but the support is here, and I'm excited about that. Because when you have support, when you have that camaraderie, you can go a long ways, and I see that, and I've heard it from everybody else. So when she said, can you come so we can introduce you, and I thought every member of the board, and I know everybody too. But anyway, thank you, and I look forward to this.
Okay, well, welcome Kathy and Kenneth, and we welcome you to our little family here at the college, and I know that you're gonna do very well. This is something that's very new to all of us here as a board, and we've struggled and we've met a lot of different challenges, and even though we plan, things tend to go a different whole way. So I think that we have a really good team here. I think that we have you know, the right people in place, that we've said before with Dr. Amata and Dr. Yutzi, and we really rely on them to give us guidance as to how we should develop the college. So I know that we've been kind of lacking in our IT and some of our Facebook, I think. So those tools that we have to use to reach the millennium generation, so I think they're kind of like on a short time span, I think. So there's a lot of challenges. So if you have anything new that you see, or you think that, you know, that we could adjust in our plans, you know, that would be very good and very helpful to us. Normally we do a strategic planning session, which happens every year. So some of the things that, you know, our priority for the college is really the building out the preservation aspects for the Native American or for the Apache language and history and culture. And we really haven't touched on that yet. So we really are wanting you to build that out. And that's really the primary objective for this college. Other things are like the healthcare, and other things are like the law and order type things. So, but again, IT is big because we want to do online classes. We want to reach as much people as we can. So welcome. I'm glad that you're here. Okay, we'll go on to the next old business for AHAC week in Washington, D.C. Dr. Amata?
Thank you, Regent. Truly appreciate it. And I invite you to join me since you were with us in DC, and that was wonderful to have you there. I also want to acknowledge the participation of our chairman. I think that added a special element to our delegation and to the effectiveness of our visits, and how people looked at us and how seriously they took us. So it is, I did not, you know, I wanted to start right away by acknowledging you know, the sacrifice, the effort, the time. Thank you, Beverly. Good evening. That was made by our chairman to be there. We were also lucky to have Ms. San Carlos Apache join us, and her mother went as a chaperone. And we had Ms. Tammy Shorten of the chairman's staff. And there were other representatives of the tribe that were representing the law and order and the Scatui and other utility interests of the tribe. And we were not all together, but there were a few occasions where we were able to, all of us, be in the same meeting when it made sense. It was really good. Overall, it was a very effective gathering. You do have a lot of materials. I know it's late in the night. I wanted to highlight some of the most important things. Let me begin by emphasizing the AHEC piece of it, and you will see there that this has been rather consistent. I've attended several of the AHEC annual gatherings in DC, and I see that even over the last 3 to 4 years, the message or the agenda that AHEC has promoted in DC has been pretty consistent and pretty much the same, which is good. I like it when they stay on focus to those things that matter the most. And as you will see in your packet, and again, there's so much material in here, I don't know if you would be able to find it, but under the AHEC briefing book, there's two, it says our message to Congress, and there's 2 items. And this is exactly what has been done, at least for the last 3 years. And the 2 items are, the first one is the reauthorization of Title III, that when we separate ourselves into little advocacy groups as TCUs, and we go throughout the Hill meeting with our respective state delegations, congressional delegations, we go as a group of, let's say, about whatever number of TCUs are in our group. If it's just the state of Arizona, for example, we'll have all 4 TCUs in Arizona, which would include New Mexico, Navajo Tech University, Diné, TOCC, and us in this case. And that was that's the way it's generally organized, and it's very effective because if our state representatives won't meet with the TCU presidents, students, and staff from the TCUs in their state, it just doesn't make sense for us to be advocating for our specific needs. However, we try to stay consistent as a group. So the 36 of us, even though we were lobbying primarily our state congressional reps, will advance 1 or 2 key points. In this case, it was the reauthorization and full funding of Title III. And that continues to be huge. We pointed out over and over again, and this was happening with all 36 TCUs, that Part F of Title III, many of you are familiar with this, which underwrites the capacity building, institutional capacity building of TCUs, is crucial, and it is set to sunset this coming year. What they want to do is lift that moratorium and have it continued, unlimited. The TCUs give their story about the importance of that, and I would say 80 to 90% of the TCUs noted to their respective congressional reps that not having Part F funded means they will lose about 1/5 of their entire budget. And these are well-established, TCUs are small, they have limited funding, but 1/5 of their entire budget would just be wiped out. Many of them say they would not be viable financially. And so it applies to everybody. Then the other one was the 1994 land grant, and I was delighted to see that once again this was one of the top 2 and main themes that cut across all TCUs. Why? For several reasons. As they have been pointing out, the 1886 TCUs, land grant institutions, really get the lion's share of the money. They're very well funded. They were the original land grants in the middle 1800s. And then came the historically black colleges and universities, I guess it was 1890. And they receive at least 10 times as much funding per institution than the average TCU. And so there's been a lack of parity between the TCUs and all other institutions. And they've been able to make a good case for this has to end. There's no rationale for it for any reason, either strategically, financially, politically, to have such extreme lack of parity in this funding. So this was done, I think, very delicately. You don't want to offend anybody that represents the HBCUs or friends that are critical to us of the original land grant institutions from the 1800s. 1864, I think, was the original land grant. So we did this as a group throughout Capitol Hill, and I'm talking about all TCUs now. Let me just speak very quickly and briefly, and then I want to give Regent Patchouli an opportunity to talk about some of the advocacy things we learned in meetings where she was representing the college as a regent. We had an opportunity to meet as for the college alone, just for San Carlos Apache College, with the key staff members of course, our 2 senators, Senator Flake and Senator McCain. I need to say this, when I went again, I was able to double dip because I joined the AHEC team, who also had meetings with the staff of these offices. Right. And they were like, "You're back again?" Well, they met with some of the junior staff, people who were relatively new, and whereas we as a college alone met with the chief of staff, the senior staff members, and that was crucial. We were very well received. Some of them remember me, and the McCain staff knows me well, and so we were able to, I think, learn a lot and get some follow-up from them in terms of, they have been even contacting me up till today about following up on some issues and ideas that we laid on the table. But let me point out what we learned the most. And I would say knowing what we didn't know was very important. We went there thinking we knew what we could get done, or that things had changed in a way that defied what we understood or what was intuitive for us. But let me tell you, we had a bucket of cold water splashed on us right away about what our reality was. And let me just state it for the record very clearly and succinctly, because I think it was good for us to know the truth about our situation, what we can do, what we cannot do, and where we go from here. Number one, we cannot pursue or receive BIE funding or any opportunities until we are accredited. Period. There are no ways around that. And I know there were many discussions by different entities, being hopeful, if you will, that that could be done. That somehow, some way, once we got over there, we could negotiate some avenue by which we could get some BIE funding or be recognized by the BIE in some way. The truth of the matter is that we did meet with the BIE directly, and the individual, Catherine, who does the actual eligibility studies, immediately pointed out the statute saying, it says right here in the language that until you are accredited, blah, 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 so you were not going to do, you're not eligible. We cannot conduct an eligibility study until you're accredited or a candidate for accreditation. And what was interesting is there was the deputy director of the BIE is Bartholomew Stevens. He's from the Apache tribe. Some of you probably know him or his family. He himself, who's been there for a long time, acknowledged that he wasn't aware of these nuances. And that's one thing we learned, that when it comes to these issues of how a TCU gets started, when does it get, how does it pursue BIE support, what are the criteria it must meet to acquire it, how does it tie into accreditation, and so on. There are different levels of understanding by many different people. Even within the Bureau of Indian Education, members of Congress, the vast majority of the staff that we were talking to were like, really? You need to do that? So even they themselves are like, okay, so how can we help? Help us get a way around it. Help us get well, tell you what, let's find a new strategy to get us money. And let's talk about it. And so that's what, we did the right thing. Right away we said, we know that's not an avenue. Let's find alternative routes to sending federal funds to this college, apart from the BIE, the 1994 land-grant model, and so on. And so they're all on board on working with us to explore different ways, and I'll talk about it again a little bit more. But I did want to acknowledge that, number one, we cannot pursue BIE we cannot pursue being designated as a BIE funded institution or receive 1994 land-grant institution status until we're a candidate for accreditation or have accreditation. And there's no way around it, and it has many repercussions that I'll point out that we learned throughout the week. Now, it's important for, there's nothing I hate more than ambiguity. I need clarity. I don't care if it's right, wrong, I need clarity, right? And so the ambiguity of what the hell do you mean by candidacy, okay? And Regent Pichuli can chime in on Carrie's own definition, but it kind of clarified it. And it basically is this, and I think it's good for all the regions to know this because this word's going to be thrown around. To achieve candidacy for accreditation means that HLC has taken you on as their own. They are now your mothership. In other words, that's the last stage in the accreditation process. So it is, you're like a fiance, if you will. You've already been giving each other fiance rings, and did your blood test, and got a marriage certificate, and the wedding is set, it's basically that way, okay? And it's important not to get confused with. There's a stage of candidacy which is separate from accreditation. They're one and the same. They're one coin, the two different sides of the coin. One is candidacy for accreditation, the other one is full accreditation. But they're basically the same thing. What candidacy means is that HLC has now said, we're now taking you under us, and under a certain amount of period, and if you fulfill certain criteria, you will become fully accredited. So all we need is that candidacy to be able to apply for everything. So let's say HLC says, we want you under us for 6 months, that's mama-ship, right, mothership, or a year or 5 years, it doesn't matter what the time is, we are eligible to have an eligibility study done here for BIE funding to get on the land-grant, 1994 land-grant list, and on and on and on. We're eligible for everything. So I hope that's helpful in terms of clarity about those things, and there's no way around it. The other thing that was, and the lobbying group that we worked with, Betsy, really had no knowledge of this. Had absolutely they were totally misinformed about these realities. And that's why they were writing to me about potentially being too far behind in the process of having an eligibility study, being we were way behind, and I get in on the 1994 list, and poor Chairman Rambler, he was there begging at every meeting, goes, so how do we get on the list? How do we get on the list? And then, you know, and it was, finally, I think, the truth just came out. It says, you will not get on the list, end of discussion. So let me pick up on that one, because it's important. We had a very critical meeting with the House Committee on Agriculture with the Senior Council. Were you there, Regent, in that meeting?
No, no.
At any rate, it was a very important meeting, because they are that group is the one that sets all the states for the House to review and approve the big farm bill. And so I'm grateful to Mapesi, they pulled that off. It's hard to get that in that group of people. And they right away informed the chairman, myself, and the others, there is nothing we can do to get you on the farm bill list. Nothing, absolutely nothing, because you're not accredited. So we were hearing this every meeting, 5 times a day, every day. And so by Wednesday, we heard it one more time, we're gonna jump out the window. So like, okay, we got it. All right, we're not, but he was really getting at something. Is there anything we can do where we could be added to a standby list kind of thing, if you will? Which makes sense. And they were like, no, and there's reasons for that, we can't go into it. And you know, our chairman, he's very persistent, so he said, you know, can there be an amendment? And they did say, you know what? Once you get accreditation, if you're you get accredited right in the middle of a period where you got years to go before the new reauthorization, you can ask for your congressional delegation to pursue an amendment to add you to the list. It's not very likely, but it's possible. So we learned that. So we're ready to do that. We're gonna make a list of all the things that we gotta be prepared to do, when, how, and for what reasons, and so we know that. Now, yes,
I'm sorry, I was gonna say they shared that with us our first visit.
Oh, good, so,
Yeah.
that, you know, and I'm thinking, it's something that we really need to be prepared for. Now, I did have a follow-up meeting with several of them that turned out to be really good, so it was just as I was leaving, we made a good connection on some of our interest in agriculture, natural resources, and the gentleman gave me his card, and the main person that was in charge of that said, please follow up with us.
Yeah.
We wanted to explore this, because I said to them, you know what I'm thinking right now, we're better off trying to get crumbs using the TCU, BIE, they're all fighting for a small amount, when we could be asking major universities to be our partners, and money is earmarked for us. I'd rather go through them. And they go, I like that idea, that's very doable, let's discuss that. And I said, I have a group of institutions that I want to bring to your attention. And so they're open to that, and they're waiting for that. And it does make a lot of sense. So that's a strategy we're going to be pursuing very quickly. Now, that did not preclude us, and I did discuss this with the AHEC group at the end in debriefing, that although we have a relationship with TOCC where we could pursue extra funding through their existing Title III, if there's a way to earmark something for us, like for student services positions and so more will be coming to that. Paul knows of it, he likes the idea, he's been discussing this with Dr. Yutzi himself. So, but two things about that. Number one, the money is still going to be very tiny, because in the big scheme of things, funding for TCUs is not a high priority in Washington. They give crumbs to TCUs, it's a reality. And whatever we're able to get is going to be very tiny, but it's still good. We'll take everything we can get. And if we can fund some positions like in student services, going through the enhanced TOCC Title III, wonderful. But we need to put more of our eggs in the bigger and more promising baskets, and that is to work with our rich and more powerful, influential university partners, which can earmark and funnel much more money to us to get going, including some of the money we could use for indirect costs for larger operations and so on. So those are some major achievements from our meeting. We got a lot of clarity on that. Let me see, there's a lot of material. We can discuss this again at our next meeting or follow up on some things. But I did want to point out that almost in every major meeting that we had, the issue of us pursuing funding from other sources, corporate funds, private donors, the big foundations, And what is neat is that as they learned about our situation, they were like, okay, you guys are in a different category. And that's what we were doing. We were saying, okay, help us, guys. We're not in the regular category. We don't fit anywhere. We're in no man's land. They were saying that you are in no man's land, so help us. Help us get funding. Now, something great happened along the way. And that is that we learned that there are 4 to 5 other TCUs emerging right now. We're ahead of all of them. And so the opportunity presented itself for our college to be the leader to create an alliance. So I started talking with them, even the people from California. We met, Regent Pichuli and I met Representative Liu from California, and they had a good number of the tribes that, there's 166 tribes in California that got together and they got that California Tribal University College. And so they were there trying to figure out how they're gonna go about getting going, and they're looking at using some community college in Northern California as their mothership, and they're just getting started in that. They don't have an operating agreement or what have you. And the Mescalero Apache is thinking the same thing, working with the NMU. They got Butch Blazer, by the way, to be the president of the Mescalero tribe, which is a wonderful. And he and I met, and he said, I was told to talk to you because of the model you're pursuing. We need help. And then we learned that Alaska has a new TCU that is, we're ahead of them. They're looking for they're working on an agreement with a private university to be their mothership, but they're just in that discussion. And Robert Valencia from the Pascua Yaqui tribe, who Regent Pichuli met for the first time, right? It's the first time you meet him, but I've known him for a long time. They are exploring creating their own TCU. So we have an opportunity, as in politics, they say, constituency and alliances. We can form an alliance of a constituency that's unique, in a very unique situation, and we can go as a group to get some funding from different sources because of the no man's land that we're in. We need startup money for 3 to 5 years, and we're a legitimate contender for special attention. And I think a lot of these staff members acknowledge that, and they started offering something they don't normally do, and that is they have contacts and networks with the major foundations. And they were urging us, you better move fast in getting a foundation off the ground, because nothing can stop you from receiving millions of dollars starting tomorrow. Once you have a foundation off the ground, you go all over the world. You don't have to go through BIE eligibility or TOCC. And so that was really one of the major imperatives that we learned and we embraced coming back, that there are things we got to move on very quickly and aggressively, and things that we got to be patient with, and things we got to be strategic about. We got to fast track our accreditation process, and we found that there are ways to do it. They urged me to attend the Chicago meeting for that purpose. There's a president's gathering, and also to meet with the president of HLC, which they will help organize somehow. They feel they can make it happen, and that we can get into branch campus status as soon as we can. Then from there, there's no set time. In other words, we could be on record pace to achieve branch campus, and then after we receive that, we can move as fast as we can to become a candidate. There is no, so even though figures are thrown out 3 years, 5 years, 15 years, all that, we could do this by within a year to a year and a half from now, we could have candidacy studies. But we can't sit around waiting to get funding for that, and for the federal government for that. So those were among the major revelations that we learned. We made some very good new contacts with and commitments. And it's interesting because people make commitments. You walk away, you take their card, you write back to them, you never hear from them. You call them, they say, I don't remember meeting you. And this is a case where they're the ones writing to us, hey, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, I can't believe this. These are all the chiefs of staff calling me and writing me, and they go, I have this meeting. I'm going to pull these people together. When can we talk again? And it's obvious that they're very interested in doing this. I would like to have a meeting with the emerging TCUs. Why? Because I think that if we form a group for fundraising purposes, we have more leverage. In other words, if we go to the billionaires as a group, we have a better chance, because it's just 5 of us. And it's the indigenous peoples of the world forming their own higher ed institutions. And given that there's 5 of us, I think we could have a big impact on Kellogg, on Ford, Tinker Foundation, the Lilly Foundation. We can obviously go with Gates, and if we use our collective networks, we could do that. And I would like for us to be the leaders, the coordinator of that. But the most beautiful place to meet is the Inn of the Mountain Gods. Have you been there with the Mescalero Apache? Oh my God, it's so gorgeous. But then I'm thinking, maybe that's where we'll hold the meeting, but still, we gotta be the ones that call the meeting, right? And use them to launch a fundraising advocacy campaign. That doesn't mean we don't do things on our own, and we'll see where that goes. Now, I noticed that Monty and Paul and Elmer all talked about how much money their colleges are spending on remedial and developmental ed, and that causes a parity problem. And my sense is, I don't relate to that, I don't agree with that, because I feel that that's just inherent in our mission.
Yeah.
We choose to work in open door colleges and to work with institutions that take everybody wherever they're at. That's in the core of the mission, and if it takes a lot of money, so be it.
Yeah.
It's still gonna pay off handsomely to the tribe and to the people that are served. And so, you know, I let them do their own thing. I didn't really, you know, chime in with them. I felt like, you know, I'm here for another purpose, and that is, and actually I felt like I had more in common with the emerging TCUs that really were not present. They just met with their people, like the gentleman, the people that came with Mapetsi. At the end, let me say this, and then I want Regent Pichuli to share what she learned and what she saw from I had asked throughout the week for Carrie to give us some quality time, hopefully with the chairman, but she wasn't able to accommodate him before he left. He had to leave on Thursday, and she met with us when everything ended on Friday. It was a quality meeting. She did give us quality time, had a few members of her staff, but I was a bit surprised, I don't know about you, Regent Pichuli, but I was surprised at how little she knew about our status. I even showed her the picture. Well, I said, there's Regent Pichuli, there's the other, there's you, Harry. Look at that, that was a few years ago. And I'm like, you know, this meeting, these conversations have been going on, and like, did you guys get approval to have a location site? You know, the stuff that Jane Latane did. I mean, why would we be offering courses if we weren't approved by HLC to be and do you have a designated HLC person? I couldn't think of the name immediately. And on and on and on, and then she recommended that we hire Jane Latane to help us with accreditation. And I know Jane well, she's okay. She doesn't know 1/10 of accreditation in the program. So it was a little strange how poorly informed Carrie was about our situation, which is okay, because I think as the conversation evolved, she started making really good commitments, like agreeing to help us fast track, work with the meeting in Chicago, urged me to be there and to help behind the scenes. She also started giving us the names of the key people that just got through the same arrangement. In Minnesota, as you know, one of the TCUs recently finished the process and now is independent, but it went through a lot. It started with Fond du Lac, and then it ended up with Leech Lake, and is it Red Lake? And gave me the names and said, you know what, this is knowledge. These things don't happen all the time, so you probably can gather some very good knowledge of what they did that you can learn from, and things you don't want to emulate. And people are going to be asking you for advice and ideas on what to do, what not to do, which is true. So in many ways, we're in a situation where there aren't many experts on what we are trying to do of creating a new, and every reality is different. Minnesota's situation is another world from ours. So what they went through may or may not have any significance to what we're going through and how best for us to navigate it. I am a little worried that we will be losing two of the most influential members of the U.S. Senate that are our advocates, and they would go all out for us, and that is McCain, who was too ill to be in the Capitol, and Flake, who is moving on. As you know, yes, he's not running again. And they have been very supportive of TCUs. And I hope that we can get more out of them before their time ends. And we should go all out. That was really the thrust of what came out. There's more that Regent Pichuli can share in terms of, you know, what we learned from AHEC. One thing is clear to us. we need to rely primarily on AHEC from this point forward and not other lobbying groups, because it goes against what they view themselves. It's sort of like they are the advocate and the lobbyist for member institutions, saying, oh, you want to be an AHEC member, you're going through all the steps, you gotta, I went with a check, I handed them a check for membership, and here's what we learned. We thought it was so easy, right? You just said, no, it turns out that AHEC needs to conduct a visit and approve it. They have to have a president, and they do a physical visit before you can be approved as an AHEC member. And
Well, that was for the associate. There was another debate with Carrie, because she said that we should just be at a membership level, which is the entry level. However,
emerging.
yeah, so, but Dr. Amata and I said, no, we want to be the associate level, because we already have the location, we already have courses,
all the
we have
criteria.
programs, we meet the criteria, all we need is the or the AHEC visit. And so she kind of debated with us, and we said no, and then that's where she was shocked and said, you already have a, a place, and you already have, and we said, yeah, it's all by tribal resolution, we're here to play. We told you that a year ago. And so she was shocked, she was very shocked. And she said a lot of tribes come and they say this and then they don't do it, but she was just like, are you sure? And she kept saying, your young board did this? And I said, we're here to play, I'm telling you. So the next step for AHEC would be to go, she was gonna convene the membership committee in March. And hopefully that's gonna be something that will be brought to them for our membership. And she is, I believe she's gonna recommend us to be an associate, but that's gonna be contingent on the visit, with AHEC.
Right, and she did say to me, as soon as you can, write me a letter requesting that AHEC organizes a visit before their March meeting, so we are not sure. That way it can move quicker, because it won't be delayed by another 5-6 months, which is not all that bad in reality, because it's not gonna make a big difference with regard to the rest of our federal negotiations. But so I gotta send her this week a letter, official letter, requesting that they acquire. Now it has to be a president that comes and leads. It could be a president with somebody else, and it cannot be Paul because there's a conflict of interest.
Right.
So that only leaves us Monty and Elmer. And either one will be fine for us. And Elmer would be even better because he's been around a long time, and he represents both Arizona and New Mexico. And it can be done. I think it's just one day. I think it's a one-day visit, and they just need to validate. I think you said it right. She was very surprised, and I was like, I got a little impatient, and I said, all of these criteria, we met them right away. It was easy. I said, there's nothing that we don't meet for the associate member. And you're right. I think now that I think of it, in fact, I'm glad you remind me of this. She pointed out, see, it's funny what we learned at the very end that they couldn't tell us, that there's, remember what I said about the House bill and all the others that kept saying to the chairman, no, sir, there is no way around it, you cannot get on the list, there is not this, and they were withholding information that they couldn't share. Well, Kerry shared it with us. The reason for that is that TCUs did that. Just like Kerry being apprehensive that, the other come and they say, we have a nice building. Then they find out they're staying in a little closet across the street. That was their building, right? And they say, we have these faculty, and they weren't qualified faculty then. And so they're in a position where they need to trust and verify before they can move forward. Well, that's what happened. There was a time when TCUs were permitted to get on a list if they were pursuing accreditation, knowing that the appropriations committees would take a while, and that by the time everything was said and the lists were confirmed, they probably got through the accreditation process, or that they were given a certain time frame of a year, 2 years. What turns out is all of the TCUs that applied never, ever got accreditation. Yet they were demanding to be money through the Farm Bill. And it created such a terrible situation that the members of Congress said, never again. No institution that's not accredited can even apply to be on the list. And so the innocent pay for the guilty. So we learned from her that it was because of previous situations where TCUs misrepresented their ability, capacity, and that they were total failures in getting. So there's been quite a bit of effort by other TCUs that didn't work out. We don't know about those that attempted and just didn't work out. That just doesn't get on the record. At any rate, Regent Pichuli, some other things you'd like to share with?
Yeah, I think primarily St. Carlos Apache College was kind of put on everybody's scope because earlier in the week, A had hosted a session with the Indian Affairs Committee. And in that session, they had asked for Native students to speak about their college, their experience. And Miss St. Carlos, Angel Tarango, got up, and her delivery was spot on. She talked about our people, she talked about the need of it for education, and you know, what her journey was like, and she herself is a veteran, and so all these different things. She hit everything that, and people were like, who's St. Carlos Apache? You know, they were looking through their packets because we're not a college.
We weren't even listed.
We're not even listed.
We're not even listed.
So they didn't even, you know, people were like, who, you know, I see them fumbling through their book. And then Dr. Mata got up and he told them nation building, and that was the key word. And after that, everybody was like running to Dr. Mata to say, what do you mean about nation building? How are you doing this? And, you know, that was through our agreement with TOCC. So there was a lot of things that happened earlier in the week that put us on the scope. And then I also did these, gathered all these different published articles that we had about the college over the past year, and C-Ray and Ken helped, and we put all that together. We were handing that out to folks, and it shows kind of like a timeline as to the agreement, and then the opening of the college, and then hiring of the president, and all these different things that happen in a short time frame. So people were asking us, you know, different tribes were asking us, how did you do this so quickly? Everything that was supposed to be done within a 3-year time frame was done within a year. And, you know, we said, we're ready. Our people are ready. We're wanting to do this. So that kind of opened up a lot of questions for us, and a lot of people came and talked to us, and we went to the chairman and supported him and things like that. So that was one of the really good things that happened this week. And then it really kind of set the tone for the whole week when we went up to the Hill and talked to folks, and talked to Tom Holloran, Congressional District 1 out in Arizona representative, and he was very helpful. He is definitely going to support us whenever we come to the Farm Bill and any other educational funds, and anything that he thinks that we can connect with the different organizations, like the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, things like that. And I think one of the other big things that we talked about too was a foundation, building a foundation, because all these other colleges, tribal colleges, rely on this Farm Bill funding. They rely on federal funding, and you may not get that, given that the new administration has put a lot of mandatory funding to discretionary. So to kind of put all your eggs in one basket was kind of, to me, it was real visual as to how other colleges did it. But when Dr. Mata talked about foundations and how we should have a separate stream of funds coming through that we can rely on, I think that's where everybody's ears kind of perked up, and that's why they all kind of wanted to come to St. Carlos Apache College, because we were kind of like, you know, being a little bit more innovative than other folks. So it was, yeah, people were very, they were very, you know, they were coming to Dr. Mata, they were coming to me, so I think that was really integral. And a lot of folks came, you know, like I said, the California tribes, even though they're in the state of California, they're kind of the same situation, because if you go back, if you recall, there's really no guidance. There's really no steps other than this broad paper that Tippecanoe wrote some times ago. And, you know, so other tribes want to have a tribal college, but they're not sure how to do it. And because we're quickly emerging, you know, they wanted to find our opinion and speak with us. And Mescalero, they definitely are looking for a tribal college, and they are wanting to partner with us. And you know, we brought the chairman into that conversation, and the chairman has always wanted, and some of the other Apache chairmanships, they want to come together and form an alliance, which be another thing that would be very powerful politically. So there's all these different things that we kind of talked about, and I was trying to write everything down just so that we can come and revisit this and share with the board. But I think primarily, given all the information that we received, I think that we're still in a good place. You know, we're really moving forward quickly. We're making the right decisions. We're building the path as quickly as we can. And I think a lot of folks out there recognize it. I mean, they came to us and asked us for our opinion, and I was like, go talk to Dr. Mata. So we met, even just meeting people at the National Congress of American Indians. They were going that same week too, so the chairman kind of had his time split on 3 or 4 different things. So we went to that reception and we met Verlin from the vice chairman over in Tohono O'odham, and he even said, hey, anything you guys want, you need, just let us know. So that was really good affirmation from him. And we did talk with Senator Warren, Elizabeth Warren, and was very interested in TCU. So I gave them contact of Carrie Billy at AHAC and the chairman. So there's a lot of stuff that really happened. I think it was a real positive visit, and hopefully we can build upon some of these points and move forward.
Thank you, Regent. One thing to wrap this up, that made a big difference, I think, is that we had a chairman who could speak with such detail about the college, how it got started, where it's at, where it's going, its impact, and in a way that I think you rarely see the chair of a tribe, president of a tribe, be able to speak with be so well grounded on the nature of the institution, what it needs, and the conviction that he communicated about, this is the future of the tribe. We need this college to forge the future of the tribe. That made a huge difference, because I don't, other than these other separate events, because this was Native American Week as well, so there were many events that AHEC did not anticipate. So it stole a lot of their thunder, and it created some confusion too. There were too many other gatherings. But having the chairman there, one thing that the chairman did in our meeting with Brian Rice, I thought that was one of the best meetings. He started drawing right there, and I thought, oh my God, he's getting bored with this meeting already. Oh no, he was drawing the building, and he says, he lifts it up, shows it to the director, and goes, see right here, there's a new tribal administration in here. This is where we used to be. This is the part where the college is. This part, the BIA is there, and they only have 3 to 4 people left, and we don't need them. But they're taking up all our space. And the director's just looking, and he goes, why are they there? Like, he was totally uninformed. There's another thing. We assumed that this message made it all the way to Brian Rice about us needing and wanting that space, and that it was just, we had all this resistance. It did not make it to him. And then the chairman says, well, you want to know what we've received? Piles of 3-ring binders with details about why they cannot move out. He goes, I'm not reading those binders. And Brian Rice looks at him, right? He goes, I hope you're not. And you, president of a nation, shouldn't be given binders by anybody to read about why his wishes cannot be honored. And he says, I'm taking care of this matter. I didn't know about this. This is going to get fixed. There's no need for you all to go without the space that you need. And he goes, I didn't know about this. This was not brought to my attention. So that was a very positive outcome of our meeting. And the chairman handled that in the best way you could. He just broke it down into a very straightforward, here's our situation. And it was very good on many. In fact, he called me back. We were done, we were going to wait. He calls, he goes, I understand that you are very, very committed to a natural resources agenda. I said, I've been doing this forever now. I said, I started with the Department of Interior, 8 years, full time, promoting natural resources agendas. Then I said, did it for Danae. Now here, I think that is, apart from public health, because health is the #1 priority, the greatest opportunities to create meaningful jobs, I said, is farming and ranching. And not to be able to do that would be a shame. And, he says, oh, I'm a big tree hugger, natural resources runs through my veins. He goes, so you can't do anything because you're not on the 1994 list. They told you at the BIA that you're not this, you're not that. And he looks at me and he goes, why can't you work through some big university partners? And I go, that's what I was thinking, and I want to list them for you. He goes, oh, he mentioned UC Davis. I said, U of A. He goes, of course. NAU, of course. He was like, and then I said to him, you know what? Let me sit back, send you a list of university partners, and then you tell me how you can help. He goes, we can make a big difference. We can just funnel money. We'll negotiate to get you as a separate partner and we'll get money through the University Partners for Natural Resources. You don't need to wait on any other list or be part of the BIA or the BIE. Just work with the leading universities in natural resources. Let us champion you as their partner behind the scenes. So it's a Trojan horse approach to getting us funding that we didn't qualify to pursue under BIE or 1994 land grant status. So the meeting with the new BIE director was very good. I'm just looking forward to the day when the people next door are walked out, preferably in orange suits. No, that's getting me. No, but it's just like it's just sad because the opportunities for us to offer many more courses, good courses. We're apprehensive about overcommitting, without having the right space, quality space, or even hiring more faculty. You need a little office for every faculty member. We're lucky we have one little office for Kathy Kichian, and we're out of space. We have nothing now. Ken and Laren, our facility, created an office, built it, so that Ken would have an office to go to. And so I'm still in that little corner at the end, and I'm like, so we can't commit to more people and more agendas without adequate space, and it's got to be, and so it's not a minor thing not having the space next door, but we can work without it if we use the Gilson wash. So like I said to the chairman, tell us, you know what, I'd rather that we not rely on the BIE. It'll be nice if it's there at the end of the semester or at the end of the year, but let's move forward as if they're gonna sit there and fight us for the longest time. Not worry about it. Let's find alternative ways. Let's look at the Gilson wash space for classrooms, other space, like look at this conference room we're in right now. We could negotiate having this given to us for the evenings. And so on, so that we have plan B, plan C, and so on. But overall, it was a very good, I think a very successful meeting. It's just there's so much follow-up work that's required, and we gotta get that done. At any rate, we're only on 2A of old business, oh Lord.
Yeah.
Speed up.
Okay, thank you very much, Dr. Amata. Does anybody have any question? Tolbert, Jonathan, Marlene?
No questions, but more of a comment. I just want to thank you, both Dr. Amata and Gail, for the role that you guys played in the trip to Washington. I thought hearing both of your reports, it was very beneficial, and I think we're only going to grow from this. So thank you for that.
Thank you, sir.
Okay, we will continue on to 2B, visit to SAC from the Higher Learning Commission on February 1st. Dr. Yutzi?
Sure, and others are free to chime in because others participated, in parts of the visit as well, including Dr. Amata. A lot of us had, thank you for coming. A lot of us had, one-on-one meetings with the group. I happened to be the person who sort of facilitated the whole thing, so, I was the person who Dr. Ham would go to after every meeting, like, where do I go next? So I had the opportunity of kind of talking with her after every single meeting, or kind of like as follow-up, and so, and there were certain things that, some things she would say, well, I'm gonna put this in my report, but other things she's like, oh, this isn't really for my report, but, let me just share, and so, I think I mentioned later in my report, we had at least 30 students showed up for the evening session with her, and I was surprised. I didn't think we'd get that many students. I mean, we had more students than that, but it was, I think providing food was helpful, and she said for the first 4 minutes they just stared at her, and she was worried that she wouldn't get anything out of them. They were just sizing her up, and then but then I guess eventually they talked, and they were really really passionate about things. Most of our faculty showed up, even the ones who work and have other obligations, and I think that showed to her a certain amount of dedication. I know from previous HLC visits, you don't really see a lot of adjunct faculty either being part of the process or even invited. So I think it was interesting for her to see, kind of the way we sort of run things here. And she was just really impressed by all kinds of things that we've done. Everything was really positive. She's even reached out a few times just after the fact with just kind of some suggestions. I think one of the instructors mentioned, you know, having more computer access for students, and she sent me something that another institution does, like, for example, if a course requires a computer and it's well documented, like Pell can cover that. So she's even just like been really nice about like, oh, you know, I couldn't remember this process, you know, but here it is, like even a few weeks later, she's still kind of sending emails, and she does seem to be a big champion for what we are doing, and kind of doesn't know very much about the kind of tribal college world, so it was also sort of like a learning experience for her. You know, we were able to show, lots of folks from TOCC participated, but we were just very honest about that relationship and how it's going, you know, how grateful we are that we have a partner that's, you know, lending us, you know, their accreditation. But I think she was able to see kind of firsthand, and Paul himself was just very upfront about some of the struggles that we had, especially during our first semester. But we tried to always show how very often, like over here on our side, we found ways to deal with those issues so that things improved by the spring. And you know, really what HLC wants to see, and you know, it's sort of a peer-reviewed process, they want to see continuous improvement. And you know, and I think we've been able to show that, well, you know, of course we haven't been together for that long, but you know, we are really working towards continuous improvement. So we're tending not to focus on the problem so much as, well, what are we going to do about it? How are we going to, you know, how will we do things better next semester? So the process will be that she will finish her report. If it's like a normal report, she probably has up to 60 days to complete it. Usually they do them a little sooner than that, just you know, while things are fresh in their mind. Then that report, or it will be a recommendation. So it will, you know, I'm just going to say it will be a recommendation that we are a site, you know, from everything that we've experienced. And then there's one more level at HLC that goes through, a group called the Institutional Actions Council. And they tend to support whatever, you know, the other person suggested. And then once the Institutional Actions Council votes on that, and they tend to meet kind of quarterly, so it just depends on where her report falls into that. Then we will get, or I don't want to say we, TOCC will get a detailed site visit report, and they will share it with us, you know, when that happens. Now, I also, at the end of the meeting, Dr. Ham and I had a really good talk, because she's like, you know, this is a very weird report, because technically, this is a report about TOCC.
Right.
It's a report about, you know, TOCC opened a site, you know, and this is kind of about how well TOCC's is handling their site, if that makes sense.
Right, that's what it's about.
However, you know, the whole meeting was about, you know, they met with one of our board members, they met with, so it's clearly that this is a different animal than other site visits that she's done. And she said she definitely wanted to find a way to address that in her report, because she wants it to be useful to us in addition to TOCC. Because, you know, if the report just says, you know, TOCC should do a better job helping them with financial aid, like, that doesn't give us any tips about what we should do, other than call up TOCC and say, hey, you know. So she was saying this is going to be a challenging kind of report, because she wants it to reflect, you know, everything, yet at the same time, the report itself has certain which I think why she's been kind of sharing things with me one-on-one that maybe aren't appropriate, you know, for the report. So does anyone else who spoke with Dr. Ham have anything to add?
Well, I spoke with her, she interviewed me, and one of the big things that came up was about this agreement, and she was very inquisitive about how this agreement came about, and who orchestrated it, and who's all involved, and whether we have follow-ups with the other board of trustees from TOCC. So it was just kind of telling her, you know, the operational activities of the agreement, and I think she even had a copy of the agreement. So, but once I told her that this was something, again, it was the tribes coming together, Tohono O'odham Nation, and then also St. Carlos Apache Tribe, both of them were, you know, the umbrella, and then we just fall under all of that stuff with the agreement. And so she was very impressed by it. She wanted to know more about how, you know, what were the things that in the agreement that was different than all the other agreements. And I said, well, this is a nation-to-nation building, so there's things that we take from TOCC and TOCC takes from us, like our guidance of you're not doing it right, or hey, I have a question. So there's things that we've kind of helped them to clean up some of the redundancy that they've had in their process. I did mention, we also had our ASU advisors who were really integral throughout the whole process, and they were brought on before you know, our college began, so they were at the first board meeting back in 2015, so all of their comments and all of their guidance kind of came in the beginning of all of this stuff, which we would have totally been left out in the pasture if we didn't have them. So, you know, the chairman had a lot of foresight in bringing them on, and she said, yeah, none of the other tribal colleges have done that, or any of the emerging community colleges. So she said that was really a smart thing to do. And she also talked about one of the things about the student visit. She asked me, you know, whether or not we were going to get childcare. And I told her, I said, yeah, I said, we are going to get childcare. It is in our strategic plan. It was actually brought up, I think it was from Councilman Allred Pike and the former Cadamus, Representative Councilwoman Cadamus from Bilis, and actually, you know, that was something that's going to be introduced in the short run. And she said, yeah, because childcare, she said the students should not be limited by their environment. So she said that was one of the things that the students had talked in their session, and she kind of wanted to pass that on. And I said, well, yeah, we're already thinking about that already. So those were some of the things that we kind of talked about, but one of the things that she really wanted to enhance and discuss was the agreement. So she was very impressed by that, and even the level of how we quickly developed as a college, because she said other colleges take a year or two to actually get their own facilities and their own campuses, and faculty, you know, trickles in whenever. So she said this is like unheard of. It's kind of unprecedented, according to her. So it was a good talk that I had with her. You want to say anything, Dr. Pardo?
Yeah, we had a good meeting, she and I. Her question was, what kind of relation? Her main interest was in how Paul and I related to each other. And I put it out there that he's been very supportive and cordial, and very straightforward in accepting the mistakes made by his staff, and very quick on working to fix them. And I said, what more can I ask for? I'm very grateful for that. And I asked him to take the lead on all the issues that are of an academic and student services area with my provost, who's overseeing that, and not to worry about having to communicate through me. In other words, I gave Paul the green light of, listen, a lot of these issues, you shouldn't be discussing them with me because I'm not in charge of them. They are issues that Dr. Yutzi is overseeing. So we made arrangements where it is, it's well understood that he's free to go back and forth with dealing directly with Dr. Yutzi on very detailed issues of student services and academics, which she's overseeing. And, it's good that he's willing and able. Also, it kind of is a sad reflection that he doesn't have the people at his college that have that expertise or in whom he has the trust, as Dr. Yutzi and I have acknowledged. So he's having to actually play a lot of different roles as president there, because he doesn't have the caliber. And when he was there, I acknowledged that in front of him. And then I said, Paul, I want to thank you because you're going out of your way. You don't think things are beneath. And he goes, I take this very serious. So I'm glad that you're comfortable with me being able to, deal directly with his stuff that with Dr. Yutzi directly on detailed things that go. It's fine. So she went away knowing what she wanted to know. We have a good working relationship. Paul and I, it works really well. The communication channels, the expectations are set out. I think she was a little curious as to why the tail was wagging the dog. And she said it was so obvious that our little staff of 5 or 6 people are capable of doing things that the 75 to 80 people at DOCC cannot. It's so obvious in many ways. And that was before Ken joined us. Oh my goodness, if she would see now. So, and like I said to her, one of the fortunate things that we have is that we're wearing far too many hats. And she was concerned about that. She said, you know, I do worry. I can tell that you guys have too much on your plate. You're doing too many things for a very close time. So we're handling it. We're okay. But she said, don't let it go too long because that's a burnout factor. So her concern was that we are able to get more help before we burn out. But it was complimentary. She was like basically in awe. She was very impressed by us, by the caliber of people, the caliber of our faculty. You know, with Karen Neptune, with MedHad, and I mean, with Dr. Yutzi, very impressed. And like she says, rarely do you see an institution that gets that many good people all at once. You know, and it's true. Very few TCUs have a core of outstanding people. They might have one, and there you go, you know, or two that are really outstanding. And it's just the nature of things. It's a very competitive market, but we got off to a very good start with a very good group, and with Kenneth and Kathy joining us now. I mean, it's amazing. Well, this group of 7 employees. We only have 7 employees. We can believe that, and only 2 full-time faculty, and I'm including those 2 faculty
In the 7, yeah.
In the 7. That's. You tell that to anybody, they'll go, that's not possible. How can you guys be doing this? And it does take, that's why I was out last week for help.
And it helped, as well, that if anyone was looking at Facebook, that very day was the kids from the Catholic school kind of walked over. So we had like wonderful. A group meeting, and all of us, you know, spoke to the kids, including Dr. Ham.
Right, spoke to them. She saw the whole staff speaking to that group. And then at the end with a prayer, the children said a prayer.
Dr. Amana had this metaphor for like how the accreditation is like the catechism. I don't know.
It's
like it went all over the kids' heads.
And they could all relate to the Eucharist.
The kids were like,
and they were having a good time. But she did leave, I think those of course, she was blown away. Yeah. Everything she experienced was out of this world for her. So we did our part. But like she reminded me on the way out, this is really, I'm really assessing whether TOCC has the wherewithal, not you all. You guys are great. This is not about, you know, this visit is about, are they doing what they need to do to do justice to you all as a new campus of them. That was the purpose of her visit. So it's really not about what we ourselves are qualified to do, what we're doing, et cetera. It's like more, are they supporting us and providing us a technical assistance? That's really the purpose of her visit. She was like, she said, I am here evaluating TOCC through you all, seeing how you are being affected by them, supported by them, assisted by them. So the focus really was about them. So that's going to be interesting because
it's a hard report to write. I would have.
It was a little, but it went well. Thank you for asking.
And she was exhausted, actually. She joined us for dinner the evening before the visit, showed up at 8 a.m., probably left at around 8 a.m. because all of the student and faculty meetings were in the evening, to the point where we had a meeting with her, I think it was the meeting with Regent Patchouli, and she overslept the next day, which is funny, and she's like, you guys wore me out. She's like, how do you do it? We were all there the whole day to the end, like, what, you're tired? What, like, you know. So
This is a normal day.
This is normal, like, what are you? And she's just like, I haven't worked that long, and, you know, like, forever.
All right, okay, does any Regents have any questions for Dr. Mata or Dr. Yutzi?
None for me.
Okay, we'll move on to 3 reports, 3A, President's Report.
Thank you, Regent Patchouli. The good thing is that I covered the lion's share of my President's Report, which was dedicated to the overview of the week in DC. That was Section 2. Section 1 is one I'm just going to highlight very quickly. If you can see in it, I refer to the potential contributions in the health field. And it was just fortunate that right before I left for DC, Dr. Yutzi and I participated by invitation of the CEO and David Reed of Health and Human Services. They held their annual strategic planning meeting. They do it once a year. And this is where they review where they're at, what they need to do, and there were a good number of council members. I know that council members Hook, Pike, Sneezy, and there was one others that were there. All the leaders of HHS, all the direct department heads, and the executive team of the health corporation were there. And it was a very good gathering to look at what they're doing in terms of their dialysis clinic and their treatment centers and how they're growing to provide better services. The reason we were invited, though, that they wanted us there is because they felt that the college has to now begin taking a bigger role, become more solidified as a key partner in the health professions. And that was really neat. In other words, they're endorsing us. They've always been very forthcoming. They offered us rooms when we first came here. They were the first to fill out our surveys. They have always let us know, we want to work with you. We need a lot of training and education at all levels. We have people that need to learn how to do bookkeeping and Excel and learn how to talk and write reports. And we look forward to the college doing all of that, but to the extent that you can assist with some of the medical professions at the early level or nursing and related areas in partnership, we're open to it. And everybody around the table in the room came asking us questions about our interest and ability to do certain things, and we said yes. Once we get our foot in the ground, we do this. But long story short, because I know we've been going long in these reports, is that we acknowledge that as a TCU, we are in a rather advantageous position as compared to like NTU, New Mexico Tech University, which is getting a lot of applause, accolades around the country for great things it's doing. It's doing business incubators, it's got a PhD, they're doing great things. They closed down the nursing program. They shut it down. They couldn't make it work. So when it comes to health, it's a very complex field, very expensive. Even the great NT and Yamaha Tech Universities, we're getting a lot of recognition, couldn't pull it off. Okay, now, Dene College also has attempted unsuccessfully to do a lot of things in nursing. They have an assistant nursing program and so on. The only success they've had, and in many ways Dr. Yutzi and I facilitated this, is in public health. Now, they have a certificate with the U of A in public health. They finally got an associate's degree that took them 28 years to extend it to a baccalaureate degree. And that was because of Dr. Yutzi and myself making it happen. It took almost 3 decades. Other than that, they have nothing to offer. Now, they do have a great program in public health. They work with the U of A, and they do get some outstanding research projects that are unique among TCUs. And I was asked the day after I accepted this job offer by them, can we list the college? And I was like, oh my God, you don't give me time to present this to the board. We just want to list you as a partner in the proposal. And then I said, what's it for? They go, it's to do a partnership with Mayo Clinic, the infamous Mayo Clinic on research. And what would it involve? Getting some of your students to be involved in research using Native American paradigms. And we need another TCU partner. And so I went ahead and gave them the permission back then. The proposal went through. They weeded, I don't know how many applicants, and Dene got it with Mayo and us. So we're going to be partners in that. So we're going to be going to Shiprock to meet on they pay for everything, all our trip and what have you, on this process. So bottom line, as partners, what we're going to benefit from is having students of ours have internships and research internships and other opportunities to do research in cancer as it relates to Native American communities and using methods. That's just wonderful. And so the other thing that we learned is that unlike Dene and TOCC, they don't have a good hospital. The reason TOCC and Dene College cannot do the things we can do because they don't have a health corporation of this caliber. Of this caliber, this is an amazing health corporation, and we have it. So the sky's the limit for us. And we pointed that out to them. They didn't know that. See, they're not aware, and I said, you are the reason why we can do great things, that those TCUs cannot. So we're gonna explore those opportunities. The other thing is the U of A has been approaching me for some time now. You might know that they got that multi-million, huge, probably the biggest funded project on precision medicine. That's controversial because of the use of genetic data and all of that. So they're starting all over. I said, you didn't win the respect of the tribes, you didn't get buy-in from the tribes. So if you want to come and speak to the council and to all the departments and the elders about how you can help and what you can do and be respectful, then you should start with our tribe. Come and talk to them and see what they say. The reason for that is that now they're eating humble pie. They know that they need to meet the tribes halfway and all of that. And the fact that we were the first to be there from this and all the partnerships that I have with the U of A. So it'll be something really soon that we'll be getting meetings to set that up so they can come and talk to the tribe about what's in it. There's a lot of money in it, a lot of good support, lots of money. And so bottom line is this, the opportunities in health for our college are enormous, they're great, they're diverse. Big challenge, we don't have a person to take the lead. So I point out in my report that it's an imperative for our college to acquire a full-time person dedicated to follow up on all our health initiatives. This person would win would earn their keep just by going through a process of screening out the best funding opportunities for health-related initiatives. There's so much money, it's unbelievable. Then negotiating with the hospital, negotiating with mental health clinics, behavioral health, all of them, on what is it that we need, what can we give, what the money's for, and developing programs and so on. In other words, we need a qualified, full-time professional to take the lead in these areas. It's just too big, it's very complex, but it'll pay off. And to me, we can't afford not to do this. This is a priority for language, natural resources, and public health. If we don't do those three, we're not fulfilling our main mission and work as a TCU for this tribe. And so that's why that's all I wanted to really emphasize. The rest has been covered in my report, but I just wanted to highlight how important that is. And I would like to explore the opportunity, having worked with the federal government on big things, of having an IPA, a federal government employee that works full-time as an IPA, or more, not just one. We could have several that work on different aspects. This is the right time. Now, we don't need to be accredited to do that. We don't need to have 94 status and so on. We can get an IPA given our status right now. So that's something we ought to pursue, because the federal government underwrites that kind of a position. We wouldn't pay a penny for it. So that's my report. Any questions that I can answer, be happy to do that.
Okay, do any regents have any questions?
That's good.
Okay, we're gonna move on to the budget report.
Okay. If you look at the end, thank you, Regent Picholi. At the end of it should be in your packet. It's in bright yellow. You can't miss it. A bright orange. It says San Carlos Apache College overview, a budget for FY. I'll give you all a few more seconds. It's toward the middle. I guess a little past the middle of your binder or your report. It says overview of budget. We met with the treasurer and his staff before we left. I left for DC, and he was very grateful to have this information, and it really improved, I think, the communication, the understanding, the agreement that we have now to work better with Treasurer Cronk and his staff. And what I don't understand is why he says this is the first time he's ever been given this. I've given it to him every month for, oh wow, that's another story. But if you take a look at and I'll try to go through very quickly the things that are here and what needs to be added. If you look at the summary of revenues and expenses, per the treasurer's request, I have included the indirect costs as an expense, and I included the full amount that was given to the college in the revenues. In other words, my previous budgets would only show the direct monies that we got, the 279, 280 that we were getting after the tribe took its cut of 60,000. And so every year they've been taking 60,000 basically from our annual allocation. The treasurer requested that I include the full amount, and then I acknowledge the indirect costs as part of an expense, which is fine. That's kind of traditional budgeting in some ways. So that's the differential that you'll see here, is that it shows that, you know, the indirect costs as an expense. That's from our ANA grant. And then at the bottom, you will see that there are two balances. There's actual and potential, revenues, actual and potential. Now, the potential, the reason I put potential is because we have a very good opportunity to get yet another 75,000 from the Freeport McMoran, but I don't have that bird in my hand. I haven't applied, it hasn't been, so I learned long ago, you never claim to have something, you know. Look at what the Farm Bill showed, right? Oh, Lord, let's not go there. And the other potential money is the carryover from A&A that Dr. Yutzi has been working hard to secure, and that would be 129,000. That'll be a carrier for year 2, and it's looking better and better. We're getting closer and closer to this, and that's the one thing that I wanted to just make sure you understood where that was. Now, if you look at the summary of revenues, one of the things that every month we want to be able to do this, and with the tribal council, we want to be able to show every source of revenue, the total amount, where it comes from, you know, the different tuition and how credit hours are calculated, what we're getting out of our BIE passed through to TOCC. As you know, we get 75% of the Indian student count. TOCC keeps 25%. And we're able to show the total funding for this year. And this is based on the academic year. And as you go down, you'll see the same thing, that, you know, our money that we receive annually from the Gila Community College satellite campus used to get 288,000. We successfully negotiated having that as our ongoing annual operating commitment. Treasurer Crump doesn't agree that that's going to be, you know, a built-in annual. And I said, well, nothing's going to stop us from going there every year to ask for it again. So, but everything else is laid out pretty much the way we have it. You will see that on the SCAC settlement funds, we were able to carry over 170,000, which was very good. Now, keep in mind how fluid our budget situation has been. There was a time that we didn't know that these monies carried over. So we were like scrambling around, making terrible decisions that we had no choice but to make them, to try and use these monies out of fear we would lose them. So we were trying, and then we were told we couldn't buy this, we couldn't buy that, so it was like, it was no win. And by finally clarifying the definition that this was a donated money, that therefore it carries over, it changed everything. So we've been able to start now laying out our revenue, getting a sense of what monies we have to work with from different sources that flows, what has to be expended and so on. We didn't even know about this until maybe about right before the holidays. We started learning. That's how recent some of our biggest struggles have been resolved. But what you will see is that we're going to always have this as an overview. Now, this is just so that we, at any given time, somebody can say, hey, wait a minute, how much do we really have to work with for the entire year, for what source? It's always there, okay? Now, the most important as we get to more of the budgeting is to be able to lay out our real expenses. And as you know, we have 3 major expense categories, one of them being indirect costs, the other one being personnel, people, and the last one operations. That's all organizations basically have at least personnel and then operations. And so it'll be very important to be able to show all our personnel expenses. And these sheets will grow once we have 25, 30, 40 employees. Instead of having these 7, we're going to have a long list, and we'll be able to show at the end the funding source that covers each position. We didn't have that before. So you can see at the far right, on the far right column, we have every source from which that position is funded. That was huge. Our ability to negotiate, and I got to give Dr. Yutzi the credit for this. She and and Jenica Seuss were able to negotiate this, that we transform the A&A grant so that it's dedicated largely to personnel. It does have a little bit of money for the annual meeting and some other $20,000 for operations, but 90 or more percent of the grant is pegged to positions. Now, that makes it more manageable, it makes it more relevant, and also because salaries are fixed. I mean, they're part of your fixed costs. You don't hire people and fire them every 3 months and then rehire them. So they become a fixed cost. And when you have such a restricted, bureaucratic, impossible to modify grant, like the A&A grant, you want to have it tied in to fixed costs. And this made a lot of sense. So we've made a lot of progress trying to get our funding. As our treasurer, Regent Alcalay, I'm sure that this will be very valuable to you as you're following this, how we're transforming our grants and we're realigning our different funds so that we're covering certain things that make sense. So that's what you will always see, and that will not really change in terms of what we had to work with. And then if you turn the pages, this is where the real budgeting takes place. Look at operating expenses. You will see I have 2 pages of operating expenses, but notice there are six lines that follow this. This is just to show you the model. We're doing an in-house budget, and you have January through June on page 1, page 2, July to December. There's no budget on the face of the earth that is worth its salt if it doesn't show the change in the amount of revenues that you consume for a specific activity every month. Of course, you can do quarterly reports, you can do it, but your organization needs to be able to show and know rather recently. I don't like this thing of 3 weeks later, I still don't know, what I spent. Because here, under finance, they don't reconcile. Sometimes you could go 2-3 months and you still don't know if they've taken that out. We're doing an in-house budget, so the model's been developed so that we're gonna be doing it on our own and then showing it against theirs. But we want to do monthly. So if you look here, these are our budget items. We still want to tweak these, so we're going to get better at it. And we allocated these monies, basically, it's informed speculation. In terms of, that sounded weird, in that, to the best of our knowledge of what over the last, and look how weird our situation has been. I mean, it's not a reliable one in which, how much did we spend on utilities? Oh, well, how much did we spend when we had the satellite camera? I mean, it's sort of, we're opening the planning, it's too fluid.
Yeah.
But, so we're gonna have to tweak these over time. But to the best of our knowledge, this is a good start of reallocating our total revenue among our expenses. Now, like I said, personnel is fixed, so to the extent that we can only add people, but other than that, that's not gonna be shifting. Their salaries don't go up and down. Whereas operations can. You can have variable costs, semi-variable costs, fixed costs, and so on. But I think we're getting pretty good at getting a sense of over 12 months, even though gas will go up in the winter, down in the summer, electricity will go up in the summer, down in the winter, supplies will be really high when we're buying a lot of stuff at the beginning, that we've got a good sense of the ups and downs during the 12, but what we need to play it safe, to allocate to each category for a 12-month period. And there's no substitute for longitudinal analysis and experience. In other words, with every passing year, you get better knowledge of, this is what we normally expend in marketing. Or, we're doing a piss poor job in this. We better double our budget in that area. You learn over time. So our budgeting will get better as we acquire more knowledge and data on that. So what I want our in-house budget to show is, for the month of January, of the $35,000 that we put for the whole year, it would show what we spent for that month. We'll say we spent $3,400 or something like that, and then it'll show the percentage that's left. And every passing month will show how much we spent for that month and what's the percentage of the total budget that's left. With the idea being that, more or less, you want to hit a 1/12, that you're spending 1/12. Except for those areas that are going to go up or down, and then you could have a little index or something that says, during these 4 months, we expect to spend, 2/12s, 1/6 or 1/8, because it's high month, and then it's going to drop. So we'll get a good understanding of that, but at any given time, we can get a sense of we really are underspending here, or we're overspending, or at the end of the year, we say, you know, we had a lot of money left over, so we didn't do a good job projecting. So that's part of what informs the budget process, is that you get a better idea when you underestimate or overestimate. So you can see now what our in-house budget will look like. And I had hoped that when I arrived, finance had given us we've been relying on them, and because we haven't implemented our in-house budget, and I would be able to show what we spent by category for January, and that would have already been in there. So at the end of February, we'll have this, but my hope is that when we do March, we will have these two columns filled out. And we do have a model. It's just an issue of giving Siri some breathing room, and we have a person that comes in and works part-time once in a while, a consultant that helps them with stuff, to enter all these data. And once we get, because the budget model is set up, a very sophisticated model, where every time she processes a payment, she's actually entering it into the same form that feeds our model. And it does it automatic. So every expenditure it'll go, there's formulas, it'll show what goes where and what amount it'll do the calculations, and so it's like formula driven. And that's what I wanted, for you to see. Now, you'll see there are 4 attachments. They're very simple. And we're gonna make sure, you probably don't even need to see them again because they could be part of your record. If you look under revenues, again, it would be the 3rd page that says summary of revenues. You will see that where I listed all the sources of revenue, tuition and fees, you'll see that there's an attachment 1, 3, for the GCC satellite campus, the 288, says attachment 1. And then the next line for the settlement fund says attachment 2. Then the next one for the ANA grant, attachment 3. Then for foundations, it's attachment 4. The reason you'll see that the number attachment is, it just shows you where this comes from. So that if you were curious, you go, let me see, where did they get this freaking number? 288? Okay, that's this attachment 1. You go over, attachment 1, you go to right top, and it's the ANA 82, and there's the 288. That's the amount of money that was given for the year. Then you say, okay, I want to see if they got this right. Let me see, they're claiming that they have, how much is it total for the settlement funds? Oh my God, 670,000. Let me see if it's true. Then you go to attachment 2, because that's what it says there. You go to the very top. Oh, there it is, 670, 327. Oh my God, they got it down to the dollar. So what the attachments are designed to do is give you the actual figures produced by finance on the actual account and the amount that it was built into. And it's our job then, because they're not that reliable, to reconcile month after month. But there are times when I ask for them to give me the R&Es, revenue and expenditures, and they say, yeah, here are the ones for January 1 through the end of January. Here are the ones for February, and here are or 3 months in a row, and they're all the same. They didn't reconcile, no expenses. So what value are they? They're not. And so they don't have a system that produces these that show you what you're expending, let alone encumber. So imagine if we encumber.
So someone comes in and is setting that up and training Siri to.
Right, yes. Somebody is coming in that is working maybe a few days a month, does different things. He developed the model, I gave all the things that I wanted.
Yeah.
And they do some things, just like he helped her with the minutes too, because big stuff like that. She just needs breathing room to get it going. She says once she gets caught up, it won't take much effort because everything that she enters will be entered into the 2 of them.
Mm-hmm.
So like, let's say that she purchased another laptop, then it comes out of a certain GL. When she does that for finance, it does the PO or the whatever it is that she's using, it goes into the built-in house, but it's automatic. It'll be on the other screen, and she enters it in, and it'll calculate it. So we will have reconciled in-house budgets.
And we will be very soon working with a new person in finance as our person. And we're in a strange transitional phase right now where we're working with Beth, we're working with Janet, and then we're gonna be working with Dora, who we have a really great relationship with. But even amongst themselves, they can't quite figure out, so I heard Dora starts with us in March, and so it's like, okay, well, that's this week. So right now when we make requests, it's very unclear, so we'll usually make requests to multiple people because we don't know who to contact. And then I think they just take turns not like responding because it's like, oh, that's her, and then they're not. So even this R&E report, my first request for it was back on the 15th, and C-Ray followed up twice last week, and we just got it today. So it's not always easy, and that's why having our own internal version, it won't matter as much if someone isn't available to pull the report, because we can at least say this is what we have.
I like the setup. Who designed this?
Thank you.
I like it.
Oh, thank you. I used
Of course,
to,
this is your field.
that was my field. Back when I was young and smart.
You're still-
Back when I was young and smart. That was a long time ago. So it's just dipping in the past once in a while, just to feel good again, you know. But what changes it all is the software.
Yeah.
You know, I wish that the software didn't change so much, because I would be so fluent in everything. But, you know, then I go, what? That doesn't exist anymore? And then they come up with new, and I go, I don't know how to use that software.
Yeah.
And then you feel worthless, you know, you go, God, all my knowledge of budgeting, all that came to a standstill because there's a new software that I need to be trained by somebody that just got out of high school. You know, it's so humbling.
Yeah.
But, what is important here, Regents, is that we are getting a better handle on several things we've done that I think, you know, to summarize all of this, is that we know what is workable and not workable in terms of funding, how much we can ask for the track now. We got clear definitions of how to define things and what that means. For instance, the McMoran grant is still there. It carried over. It didn't apply it to construction. So that's good, because now it's flexible, it's unrestricted in some ways, so I gotta work with them. But we were able to clarify what the settlement, thank you, Regent, because you helped a lot with that. Clarify, what is that? Why can't it carry over? They didn't even know. They were fighting among themselves, and finally, you know, somebody that said, hey, the emperor is naked, just threw that out. Isn't that a donation money? And they go, really, it is? I guess. Well, doesn't that carry over then? Really? Oh, I guess. And that's how things came about. So our whole, you know, we've been making a lot of progress just defining, clarifying the nature of our funding sources. That's huge in terms of what, you know, and because we were making bad decisions, being forced to make bad decisions, of trying to spend money as quickly as we could because we were going to lose it, and that's not good budgeting. And not knowing things could carry over, we couldn't plan, we couldn't project. So at least we made that progress. Now the in-house, just monitoring and having our expenditures, that's an easy thing. That'll come very easily. And I just worry about C-Ray because she is wearing at least 12 hats. At least 12 hats. Like she said, she's everybody's executive assistant. And you can own it. She's a liaison to the board. She's my business officer. And she's amazing, but there's only so much.
She's teaching.
She's got she's teaching. She's a mom with 7 kids. She's a wife.
Yeah.
She's a daughter. And you all, family is important too. And she's done, you know, like I said to her, we gotta move in such an area where I utilize you in a more efficient way. I would like for you, C-Ray, to continue becoming an expert in business. So we could invest in you to become, over time, our business officer. I would like that. But that means getting you away from all this other stuff that's just overwhelming.
To speak up for C-Ray in that way, we did attend at Treasurer Crunk's invitation, kind of like a tribal training having to do with finance, and it was so amazing to be there with C-Ray. And C-Ray wasn't sitting next to me, she was kind of sitting in the back, and they'd bring up, you know, some kind of federal spending policy, and C-Ray would kind of raise her hand, and, you know, and she would just bring up hypothetical situations that we all knew were real situations, and she was vindicated time and time again that the way she was doing things was the right way. And so it was.
She's a natural for this.
And it was good to see her not afraid to speak up and to,
And she's innately a very bright person that can think in different ways, and it's not mired to one way of looking at things. So that's what we need in this. So I would like to see her grow in this area, so to the extent that we can do that in the year ahead, because we need somebody to become the expert in this area. Now, we also need a person to be a liaison to the board. You can see how much support you all need as regents. So we need somebody that can play that role as halftime and then something else, and all of that. And I can't impose this on C. Ray anymore. So those are the things that we gotta look forward to. But we made a lot of progress. Let me point something out that I think people are a little confused about, including Paul Robertson, when I acknowledge that, you know, we're not as wealthy as a tribe as is the TO Nation or the Navajo Nation.
Right.
There's nothing to be ashamed about that. I think the mistake is to not be cognizant that there are very limited resources for which there is an enormous and fierce competition. There's a lot of need in the tribe. And so when the council says, you know, it wasn't easy to say no to a lot of departments, to even cut the funding for that department, and give you guys everything you've asked for. You asked for the settlement, you got it. You asked for the 288, you got it. You asked for us to do a resolution to get the BIA site, you got it. You know, the resolution of the building. You know, like, you haven't asked for anything that we haven't given to you. But our scenario, as Treasurer Kronk was pointing out, as a tribe, is bleak financially. The casinos are not making money. They're actually losing money, and they seem to be less competitive. We don't have any major businesses. The corporation is the #1 producer, the health corporation. And so the need for economic development and just wealth development in the tribe is huge. Now, the reason I say that is because you know, as I pointed out to Paul, and we don't, I cannot foresee a situation in the near future where the tribe will be in a position to say, oh, you know, let's give you, you know, your 5 years are up, let's give you 26 million, like the TO Nation just gave TLCC 26 million. That's not gonna happen.
Not, yeah.
The need is too great. I recognize that, okay. So, the reality is that, you know, we gotta find different ways to grow the college and maintain it. If we're able to get $1 million a year, we're getting what? $500,000 per year for the day. Oh, and then the 288.
Essentially.
Yeah, about 70. That's a lot. But if we're able to get anywhere near that as a continuation, I think it's pretty darn good given the size of the tribe, its economy and competition for resources. So, what we got to be careful about here is that the big expenses that are needed to get facilities, it's a good thing we're doing it now because the money isn't there. We might need to do more with less as time goes on. So acquiring the BIE site is huge for that matter what. We don't need to renovate. It's been totally renovated. It's beautiful.
Yeah.
Second, it'll set us for 7 to 10 years. Between the planning building, the Gilson Wash, and that, we're set for 7 to 10 years. We could go to 500 to 700 and be okay. Okay, now, I really think that this is a rich budget for our purposes, and that we shouldn't be expecting that the tribe can or will be willing to squeeze out more after this 5-year period, that they might be able to maintain, and even that, Kronk told us, is unlikely they'll be able to maintain. They might. A lot depends on the economic scenario of the tribe. Now, my view is, we have reasons that they can relate to about, you know, TOCC and Dene, in terms of, we gotta make do with what we have, and maybe do more things with what we have than they do. They actually have more money than they need. They're actually underperforming.
Yeah.
For the money those two have, they're grossly underperforming. No, so they can't relate to our situation, or can they relate to comments when I say to them, you know, also the council keeps asking me and reminding me, almost at every opportunity, you know, what are you doing to become more self-reliant? I think that's a little premature. Can I celebrate my first birthday with a lollipop and dog before you hit me and go get a job? You know, I mean, I'm sitting on a high chair eating my first little cake as a 1-year-old and say, when are you gonna get a job? You know, I mean, that's how I feel every time I go before, like, you know, and the Kronk leads the conversation, well, what have you done with all this? So, you know, this is something, this is something Paul can relate to, Monty can relate to, Almer. So we should not attempt to explain to them or relate to them a reality that they can't relate to. We are who we are, our situation. Now, having said that, I'm gonna go out on a limb and say that this college has 10 times more potential to get extramural funding, foundation funding, private donors than they do.
Yes.
Because of the fame of the Apache people, because of the fact that what was denied the Apache people, what they went through, they didn't go through that with the Teal Nation. When I watched that presentation from Seth, when he gives what was all that was taken away from the Apache people, I go, and that is known, okay? It's getting more and more because of what was denied, because of the decision to endure with courage. This is a message that can pull at the heartstrings of philanthropists that the other institutions can't promote. And I'm thinking, also because the Apache people seem more innovative. They, given how little money and all the problems, I think, wow, a lot has been done by the Apache people. Just think if we can get a few more things going, it'll just catch on fire. And so I think that we should not try to be like them, which relying on council money, on tribal money, on federal money, which is all crumbs from the federal. And we should go all out to get some big funders to endow us. Go to the billionaires and the millionaires, say, hey, build a giant building, a coliseum, a dorms. That's what we should be doing. Take advantage of, be the leader among TCUs that we're becoming like Princeton and Harvard and going after big money and wanting endowments. Endow 10 professorships. That means they're set for life. Imagine what that would do for the stability of this college. Endowed fellowships, professorships, chairs, a building for business, and what have you. To me, we need to test the potential of this college by going out to the main philanthropists and philanthropic foundations. And not worry, I don't want to communicate with the other DCUs about why we're trying to be, we're paying close attention and respect to our council. That they're nervous. I think that I really do believe that they're concerned about the future of the tribe to make the money that it needs to meet the needs. There are huge needs. I listen to the different departments and they say to me, we got cut, we didn't get another penny with it and we are in desperate need. I go to other departments, as bad as our building was, it's the Taj Mahal compared to other departments. It's horrible. And, I'm thinking, we gotta be grateful for what we have. And realize that it may not last long, and that this might be the high point of funding. It might be, and that's okay. Not to put ourselves in a position where if we don't get the same or more, we can't sustain. That would be a mistake. And I don't think we should have to rely on more tribal funding to make the college successful. That's what the mistake that TCUs have done. They rely on tribal funding and the little bit of money they can get funded, and then they get complacent and I'm thinking, and then they're always being criticized for, it costs more to send somebody to our TCU than to Harvard, which is true. When you take the money that they get and you divide it by the number of students, it costs more to send somebody to a TCU than at Harvard or Princeton or Stanford. How do you live with that? So that's the context of the funding I think we need to start taking into account.
I think there was a meeting was it last week with Treasurer Crunk? And that's how Treasurer Crunk started the meeting. He said, there's a lot of competing priorities with the other departments, and given that St. Carlos Apache College, basically you just get 500,000. And then Dr. Mata said 500,000, the 288, and all this other stuff. And he said, but that is a small piece as to the whole tribe. And because Treasurer Crunk envisions the college to be under the tribe, he says that a lot of money, he said, being diverted over to the college in a sense. And there's other communities, the community needs like social services and things like that. So his continual question to us through that meeting was, when are you gonna start applying for grants? When are you gonna start applying for this and that? And so, yeah, we said we will, and I think the meeting in DC really kind of put a plan together for us as to how we're gonna start pursuing other funding, because we can't continue to rely on federal funding, on tribal funding. We have to be a standalone, and to do it in a quick manner, I think it's gonna be the challenge.
Right, there, you're right, that's the
So-
challenge, is how do we start this acquisition of new monies on a timely basis, because there's a time for that, it takes time to get going, and many times you submit a grant proposal, and you're looking at a year to a year and a half for it to make its way to an actual gift, sometimes 2 years. Sometimes you need to get into the cycle 3 years in advance just to be built in. So the sooner we get going, the better. Now, Carrie did say to us, Carrie Billy, you all should apply for a second A&A grant. I said, well, we're random. No, you can do it now. You don't need for your first A&A grant to be complete to apply. And as she informed us, more than a third of the money was untapped. It just sat on it. They wish more TCUs would apply for more or bigger or other tribes. And look at us, we got 2 other big A&A grants for the tribe. One of them is the biggest of all ones on language. And she said you should apply for that. So Dr. Yutzi and I are gonna look at what would make sense for a second A&A grant. And we have an excuse, see this here. The first one was not designed for the college. It's there,
No,
we were an afterthought, we were the academic arm. It was about workforce development, and the planning department was focused on skitty. It was a mess.
It's a mess.
Okay, secondly, we can now say we're new leaders, and we have an agenda, we have a program. It could be public health, could be natural resources. We're gonna pursue, or STEM, whatever we want to make it a priority. But I think natural resources or public health, programmatic focus for the A&A, and help us build the best capacity in this area. So we're gonna talk about pursuing that, but we gotta start pursuing foundation and corporate grants very
Okay.
quickly.
Does anybody have any questions for President Amada on the budget report?
That's good.
This is Jonathan, I have no questions.
Okay, we will move on to C3, Vice President's report.
Okay, so the good news is a lot of this has already been covered, so I'm just kind of skimming through. Let's see, I do want to talk about especially our summer schedule, but kind of our fall schedule. Folks at TOCC are building their summer schedules this week, so we aren't behind yet because they're just doing theirs. You know, summer schedules are always difficult for a lot of reasons. Not all students are Pell eligible during the summer if they have already received for 2 semesters. We do have some new students who would be Pell eligible, but also because of the time commitment, technically we can do a 5-week semester, which overlaps with an 8-week semester, and then a second 5-week semester. I have found, at least at Diné College and looking at other colleges, that second 5-week semester it's a waste of time. You're not gonna get a lot of students there. So I'm more inclined to have the 5-week and the 8-week session and then just not have and we can focus on other kinds of programming during those second 5 weeks, you know, maybe some continuing ed programs for the tribe. So I would like to just have a 5-week and an 8-week. Some classes lend themselves easily to a 5-week structure, some do not. You know, a really intensive writing class, I'm not really comfortable with that over 5 weeks with a lot of classes just because of, you know, the time it takes students to evolve. You know, science courses can also be difficult. Also, you know, looking at our student population, working students can only take evening classes, but because of the condensed format, would only probably be able to take 1 evening class because it would likely be a 4-day-a-week class. So, for example, this evening, although I think they're gone by now, NAU's forestry advisor was over in our building meeting with our 10 forestry students and kind of advising them about classes that they should take with us in the summer and the fall. We also sent out kind of like a student survey for our current students about some of their interests and what classes. And of course, they're answering things like programs, but it's like, okay, not by the summer, but, because our question is about what classes would you like for the summer. Most of our adjunct faculty are available. TOCC's summer schedule from last year had a total of around 10 courses, so not nearly as much as a normal semester. So we're basically focusing on some priorities. We would like to offer a transferable chemistry course over the summer because our forestry students need that. We can offer English online, there's different things we can do. So I'm gonna probably aim for something similar to TOCC's schedule from last year, with the idea that we have available instructors should the need arise for us to add courses. So if the student interest is more, we can always add. It's much easier to add than it is to take away. I am working on that, and it kind of goes right in hand with the fall schedule. And I mentioned in here that now that we have various programs, and hopefully we can even more programs that are approved, it makes sense to start really sequencing out those programs so that a fall student can know, okay, if I take these classes this semester, the next courses in that sequence will be offered in the spring, or maybe they'll be offered in the summer, but they can start planning. So we know that, for example, if forestry students are going to be taking the Intro to Forestry, are we going to offer that class in the fall, right? So that we have like a new cohort, and I know MedHat's working on that with all of his business courses. So it makes sense now that we know what programs we have to start mapping things out. So we are kind of working on that, and this is obviously our first opportunity to do that because we're now, we're kind of finishing our first year. We know classes that, students are taking. We know students that maybe not as, or classes that not as many students are taking. So we're definitely, just relying on the data we've accumulated in-house. I did add, and it will be an action item, the academic calendar. TOCC's board just approved their academic calendar. The only changes that I made for our version were to eliminate two TO-specific holidays that fall right around that fall break, which is new. That fall break is something, we didn't have a fall break, and that was a decision made at TOCC. I think it makes sense. I know that it was tried at Dene College, but it was a disaster only because the fall break, they put it during Thanksgiving week. And then what that meant was that students had that whole week off, and then the next week was the last week of classes, and they just, they kind of forgot things, and then it was finals, and it was just like, then there was the Christmas break, and it was like, just timing-wise, it didn't work. But this is more in the middle of the semester, more like a midterm period, so I think it makes sense. So I would not recommend us having a totally different academic calendar than TOCC right now. So I support the idea of that fall break for students and for faculty. And then what we did is we went through this, so this academic calendar starts fall 2018. And I did add over the summer Apache Independence Day. I think that's important. I have already let kind of TOCC know that we're kind of leaning in that direction, and they understand and are supportive. Now what that might mean for us is having to slightly adjust the summer time blocks, because that's a day of coursework, and so I let them know we'll make sure that we take care of that. The other thing, and actually it was Kathy Kitchian, I asked her, are there any other holidays? Is there anything else we might add? And she said the only thing that she could think of was the tribal inauguration day. To kind of have students kind of be part of that kind of civic part of things. And so kind of what we felt was, okay, so we're taking away two of TOCC's holidays, and we're kind of adding, adding two things. So in the grand scheme of things, it kind of evens out, and it's something that students can feel like that's a unique day, something that they can take pride in participating in. So I did add those two. Otherwise, it's exactly the same as TOCC's academic calendar. They are in the process of also revising several things, like their catalog. There's a lot of new curriculum going through their committee. So we're not always kept in the loop about some of that until it's done. So we'll get to that when we talk about the programs for approval, because even though we're asking you to approve them, they have changes coming through, which we don't know about yet, but obviously we'll be in compliance with once they're there. So there is that. A&A grant, wow, has that been a lot of fun, working on that, you know.
So Dr. Yusi, did
Yeah.
you want us to approve this?
We can wait till after the, we'll
Okay,
just do it
okay,
right after.
okay.
Yeah, so the A&A grant, I feel like I've earned around $129,000 in the process of trying to get us that money. Like, it's really been a complicated process for lots of reasons. And Dr. Ramada mentioned how this was kind of a grant that tried to like do all kinds of things plus start a college, right? And it's sort of like, that's a lot. Our new program specialist who just started with us about a month ago, she's really amazing. I think because she's new to the project, she kind of has a good sense of humor when we talk about it, because she's like, what? Like, what are you? And what was great about the conversation I was finally able to have is we started to talk about, you know, she said, just tell me what you guys are doing. Like, you know, not just the grant, like, what are you doing? And when I started to mention different partnerships and, you know, especially like with some of the universities and with the local departments and dual credit, and she was blown away. She was like, how did you guys do this? You know, like, you just opened in August. So she was saying that even though like some of our grant objectives aren't saying like do those things, we're definitely showing what a group of dedicated people, and this, you know, this goes back to before any of us were hired, when the board was working on this, what a group of people has done with not very much money. And so she said that she'd like to find a way to kind of showcase this, because, you know, A&A has a lot of, you know, important projects, but kind of small projects, you know, in communities. And for them, in the long run, to be able to kind of showcase what a relatively small amount of funding was able to do for this group. So that's very different from our last program specialist who was like, why are we so far behind? You know, it was, so that bodes really well. I did send her all of our carryover request information for her to kind of look at first. She's new to the process. She's equally frustrated with me that some of the training videos don't correspond to the actual process for submitting a carryover request. But as of today, we've submitted, there's like 6 items that you have to submit. We've submitted actually all 6 of the items. There is one form at the end that the chairman needs to sign as the authorizing official. He's fully prepared to sign it. And there's just an issue where normally it would be a digital process, but because the form is not the correct form, in Grant Solutions, we had to print out a physical copy, and the folks from A&A just said, yeah, just have him sign a paper copy. So that was taken to his office today. So as soon as that's in, you know, everything is official with the request. She did have some questions the first time that we submitted our budget narrative, and I was able to answer all of those questions. So considering that she is the approver, the fact that we've kind of already had the conversations, I think bodes well, you know, and she did ask very good questions. Now, for the year 2 carryover into year 4, I was constrained by year 2 activities, which is a lot of creativity in what I submitted, but, you know, finally I think she gets it. So I'll be sharing hopefully at the next board meeting, you know, the good news, and then we can talk about, because I needed to make some commitments to completing year 2 goals by a certain time, and some of that involves things like the strategic plan, or like there's stuff involved, so I had to put like timelines for this will be done, and obviously everything from year 2 that we requested money for should be completed by September 30th. But some of those things, there's kind of stages along the way that we'll have to meet.
Right.
So that's exciting. Even though I'm not a huge fan of A&A right now because of all of the headaches, I do feel that if we go after a different grant, we kind of know what not to do. We know how important it is to be more focused, be a little more realistic, you know, about certain things. And so I know I could say I would have a much easier time managing an A&A grant. It actually would be relatively easy if we have control over what goes in the original proposal. So we could certainly consider either piggybacking on what we're doing and doing a little bit more with economic development as like a follow-through on what we're already doing with this grant, or going after an A&A language grant, which it seems they're very excited to be giving here, or we can do both. You know, there's nothing stopping us from doing both at the same time. But obviously kind of showcasing A&A as the group who has allowed this to happen to begin with, so that we can continue to be almost like the model project, you know, that they're working on. So I am finally somewhat content with our new program specialist, and I think we're making good progress, to the point where if you would have asked me a month ago, will we complete the year 5 objectives on time? They would have said, nope, you know, like, or, you know, we're gonna come close in some areas, but not really. But there have been some new developments, you know, folks from the former planning department, like really reaching out and saying help, and then us saying, yeah, we've been here waiting, you know, and kind of making those connections. So for example, we'll start doing some of those micro business workshops that, you know, the grant said we were supposed to do, but in partnership with the general manager's office, actually starting in April. Like, I thought we'd need months to start planning that, and it's actually starting sooner rather than later. So although I don't know if we'll be able to hit the final grant numbers, we'll definitely be able to show that we're doing all of the activities to lead up to those numbers. So I am very excited about that. There's a little bit in here just about partnerships and meetings. I do want to acknowledge that Scott Wygant did need to leave, but I would like just to acknowledge that he was here from one of the wellness centers to just kind of support the idea of the 2 social services certificates that we've met, and I'll talk about those next. That'll be the last part of my report, which leads into the program approvals. Karen visited TOCC on Friday, and one of the questions that their admissions person said, he said, when are you guys approving the liberal arts program? He's like, that's what all of your students are declaring as majors. So we do have a lot of interest, both from new students, from transfer students. I might sometimes, you know, be a little negative about some of TOCC's programs, but this is a very open program. It's not very prescriptive like many of theirs. It's very open when it comes to the checklist. So students can experiment and take sort of a variety of classes. It's a pretty good transfer degree. And as I said, a lot of students come in when they're undecided. That's kind of where you put them. You know, it's kind of like take some classes and sort of get started. So I have a lot of confidence in this program. TOCC actually has 3 pathways. This is the open pathway. They do have a pathway on Tohono O'odham language and culture, and one day we could have a similar pathway. We're just, you know, we're not there yet. And then I think their other pathway is the Borderland Studies. They do something in that area. So we're just you know, suggesting this current very open pathway. So then there's these 2 certificate programs, and I actually sat down with folks from the Wellness Center who had been interested in sending some of their folks to like Rio Salado or to other programs in the area. They kind of wanted to work with us, and so I sent them, this was my mistake, to TOCC's webpage. This is before we met, and I said, take a look. And so when we met, they said, oh my gosh, like, you know, we really like, you know, this substance abuse certificate, like, yeah, this is what we're looking for, and yeah, the social services certificate. So I was all excited. I reached out to TOCC because some of their checklists are a little bit out of date on the webpage, and I said, hey, can you guys send me the up-to-date checklist for social services and for substance abuse? And the email reply that I got was, we don't offer a certificate in substance abuse. I was like, oh, you know, like, and I felt really bad for, you know, having Scott and others look at that, and so we kind of did a little bit of back and forth, because I'm like, yes, you do. It's like it's on your webpage. And he said, oh, those, you know, that webpage is several years out of date. Okay, they still haven't taken it down, which I would have, but but I kind of, then I reached out to Paul, and you know, we have a really good relationship, and I said, okay, so all of the classes you still have, they're still in the catalog, but you don't offer the certificate. So I said, what should we do? I said, should we put the program through your curriculum committee? I said, or should we ask your faculty to put the program through the curriculum committee, or have you even told HLC you stopped offering it? In other words, like, where are we? And Paul sent me an email and he said, don't worry about it. He said, you guys don't need to do anything. He said, we'll have it active by March. So I'm not sure exactly what he's doing to make that happen. So the reason that the other checklists that you'll see are sort of like either from TOCC or from us. The last one, the substance abuse, has my handwriting on it, only because they won't give me the checklist because they say they don't offer the program. That would be, what is it? I'll try to find it when you, do you see the third one?
Yeah.
Do folks see it? Okay.
4D. Mm-hmm.
It should be there. I'll give you a few pages later. What is it?
Yeah, 4D, certificate, oh no, that's social services, sorry.
So this one comes straight from TOCC, sorry, except we added things. The next
4E, 4E,
Oh, there it is. We're almost there. So you'll notice that this is, it says 2014, 2016 on their webpage, and so I've just kind of gone through and added what I think will be there. we have no problem offering social services. Within a month or so, that other certificate will be available. However, because they're reinitiating the certificate, they may change around a few things on the checklist, and that would be, up to them. Now, I don't like usually to have certificates that don't also lead to something else. So let's put that out there, because it's also easier to get financial aid if you can say, I want a 2-year degree, and then you get a certificate on the way. I do want us to offer the associate's degree in social services that TOCC offers. However, it is not a very good program. I'm not happy with it the way that it is. Paul is actually working with the faculty on some of my concerns, which he also shares. It is not open-ended like this liberal arts pathway. In fact, it's somewhat constrictive, and it's very inflexible, and it doesn't make a lot of sense. And it's kind of a program that was put together by faculty who want their class to make, so they put it on the checklist. So it's not a checklist that responds well to the needs of students. So I've even talked with Paul, and he's pretty open to the idea that we could approve your social services program as it is, as long as we have guarantees of a lot of flexibility with course substitution for graduation. Right, we don't have to reinvent the wheel, and he's very open to that, but I'd just like to wait maybe until the next board meeting, because he is working internally. They did hire a new social services person who was kind of going through this process and looking at the degree checklists, so I do think that will be the next program that we get approved. But just to give you an idea of why I'm dissatisfied, just one example. So it's a 2-year degree, it's a full 2-year degree. The social services core, which is, the 18 program credit hours, 6 of those hours have nothing to do with social services. So in the program core, they require intro to computers. That's a 100 level,
weird.
100 level gen ed class. It's like, that's not a program, that's not a social services class. Then they require a political science class, American National Government, and it's like, that's not a program. You could put that up in gen ed, that's fine, and it's like, so a student taking one of these certificates actually gets more program content than someone getting the 2-year degree. Does that make sense? A student getting a 2-year associate's degree takes essentially 3 courses in social services.
Right, as a portion of the overall program.
Yeah.
The certificate is more substantive.
Right,
That's,
it's backwards, I know.
Backwards.
So I do want to improve that program. I'd just like to give TOCC a little bit of time to address some of the concerns that I've brought up about it. And they are. And just to speak up, just quickly to speak up for Paul, this might have been when Dr. Amata was in DC, but he saw one of Dr. Amata's emails about this council's not gonna keep funding, and Paul called me and he was really concerned, he was like, are you guys okay? And that's when, he offered, he said, you guys are eligible through us for Title III and through other things, and we can talk. And that's an option, and as Dr. Amata said, we should take every penny of that we can get. But I don't want us to be financially connected to TOCC any more than we can, when we have to. It's just for lots of reasons. But I did think it was really nice of him, and he said, if you guys are in money trouble, we can talk, and I'm like, we're not in trouble right now, we're just thinking long term, and he's really impressed at how much we're doing with very little. When I let him know that, at one point Treasurer Conk said that, we're top heavy, and he was just like, what? He was like, that's hilarious,
Those are time.
Yes,
78
exactly.
employees and a little over 100 students?
Yes. So I'm basically, both of these are checklists that we have adapted to add our own courses, We are hopeful that History 122 will go to TOCC's curriculum committee in April, so we can start offering it in the summer or fall. We'll probably wait till the fall to do that. And I did just want to speak up. One of the interesting things about Kathy is when she was first new, she's like, well, I don't know. I say that was 2 weeks ago when she was new. But she wasn't really all that interested in summer. And I don't blame faculty ever for not being interested in summer, because that was one of my favorite things about being faculty. But now that she's been with us for 2 weeks, she's actually like, I think I might want to teach over the summer. You can tell she's starting to feel like part of it, and I don't want to go away for the summer the whole time. I should do one of these classes. So, maybe we could offer that course over the summer. Yeah, so these are the programs that we're asking the board to approve. I don't think I have to spend too much time justifying, the social services, the substance abuse. There's a big need in the community. There's also, basically the social services folks says if it's during working hours and they offer a course over at the hospital, they would not, ask to be compensated for being adjuncts for that. And so they're already doing some of this with their staff. They're also interested in continuing education units with us. So I just think they're the two easiest certificates for us to offer that will kind of open up an area that we're not currently offering a lot of. We did teach, or are teaching, Intro to Substance Abuse for the first time this semester. Students seem really interested, and we'd just be ashamed to say, well, that's it, like wait till you transfer before you. And so we also have, I would say 3 or 4 folks from the different wellness centers who are all interested in teaching for us. So we have credentialed folks.
Okay.
That's it.
Okay, so that was Vice President Yutzi's report. Did anybody have any questions?
This is Jonathan, I just had a quick question. The academic calendar that we're approving and that was sent in our packet, that's not what we're approving tonight, right? That's just an example of TOCC's calendar?
No, that's it, as long as I sent the right file. Is there a reason?
We're
Oh, it should
adopting
say
it.
SCAC at the top. Like, it
Yeah,
would say,
we
it would say
forgot to-
S, unless we attached the wrong one, but I think that's the right one.
No, it's got the right information.
Yes, with the adjustment that it would actually say San Carlos Apache College at the top and not TOCC. So if you look, it has the,
Okay.
yeah. I
And
didn't
then you were
look-
gonna address the Independence Day as well, the San
that
Carlos Independence Day?
Yep, it's there. Oh,
Which block?
that's strange.
It's down at the last block, summer 8-week session,
Okay.
under
It should be
June
the-
30,
the
I
8th,
see.
right? Yes, I'll fix the
2019.
date, I'm sorry, that's just a typo on my part.
What is
Our Independence Day is June
It's
18th.
the 18th, yeah.
Yeah.
We got it.
That's why,
Yeah.
that's why I had that dot right there.
Oh,
I was
yeah,
gonna bring that
yeah,
up.
it's right in my original
June 8th.
notes, somehow it didn't get transferred there.
June 18th, okay. So that'll have to be moved up to the 3rd. It will be the 3rd
It
item.
would go above that line,
Mhm.
yeah.
Okay. All those.
Okay, that's the only question I had about the calendar.
Right.
Other than that, everything
Okay.
looks good.
Changing it to San Carlos Apache College, we got that.
Okay.
One thing I would bring up is that the academic calendar for this year that we're in right now, that includes this upcoming summer, did not have Apache Independence Day as a holiday. I was thinking about bringing it out to the board for approval. TOCC is already fine with that, but maybe I'll do that for the next meeting, because it'll be coming up soon in March. I just didn't have time
Okay,
to do that.
okay.
There's another date
Uh-huh.
that I know Fort Thomas Unified School District is kind of waiting for it to happen, which is in July. I think it's the National Native American Day,
Oh,
federally recognized. Yeah.
okay.
So that's coming up really soon, and we're just waiting for that
And
day.
it's in July,
Mhm.
yes.
It's gonna be in July.
We can look at that.
Yeah,
National Native American.
maybe
Day.
I'll study that. I'm kind of looking up the details. We'll
Yeah.
study that, and then at the next board meeting, when we discuss changing this year's, because that would involve this year's calendar
Yeah.
too,
Yeah.
we'll bring that up. Okay, I'll make a note that we'll look at what day that will be. And I think that would be fine.
Okay, so are you ready to approve this or not? Yeah, with the changes?
With the changes.
Okay,
So the June
18th, it's the 18th,
That was the
Okay.
only correction, right? Okay.
and changing it to
Um,
San Carlos Apache College.
okay, so we'll move on to new business for 4B, the approval of the 2018-2019 academic calendar.
This is Jonathan, and with the discussed changes, I motion to approve the calendar.
Thanks.
I'll second.
Okay, so we have a motion to approve and a second. All in favor say aye.
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 Tober, are you still there?
Yeah, aye.
Anybody opposed? No, and the motion passed 4-0-0. Okay, let's move on to the next item. 4C, approval of the offering of the AA Liberal Arts degree.
And I would like to give just a lot of
Is it
appreciation.
Jonathan? Go ahead.
Okay, just one moment, Dr. Yates is gonna explain something.
Oh, and I just wanted to say, this particular checklist, like if you kind of look at like the second page of it and the back page, I just want to give a lot of credit to MedHat. He took the lead and he looked at some other institutions and all of that information. We haven't yet incorporated that into our other checklist, but we will. But he took a lot of pride in like, let's make a better checklist than anyone else has. And so I just wanted to be clear, he deserves a lot of credit for taking the lead on that. As soon as he heard we're gonna, a 2-year program, he's like, let me do the checklist. Okay?
So, do I have that?
Yeah, so like, this page, MedHat put all of that together. And then this page, we were just kind of adding to it and really did that.
So we're ready to approve? Okay. All right, do I have a motion on the floor?
This is Jonathan and I motion.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second by Marceline. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Oppose, motion passed 4-0-0. Okay, we go on to 4D, approval of the offering of the certificate in social sciences. That's ready for approval, right?
And just a notation that even TOCC's description of the program, which is in your, board packets, says that they can also earn the certificate on their way to graduating with the AA in social services. So eventually we will be offering that too, but
Right.
soon.
Okay, can I get a motion on the floor?
This is Jonathan and I motion.
All right, can I get a second?
I'll second.
All right, Marceline second. All in favor, say aye.
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 Oppose, motion passed 4-0-0. Okay, and we go to 4E, approval of the offering of their certificate in substance abuse.
I motion.
We have a motion on the floor to approve.
Second.
Jonathan second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Oppose, motion passed 4-0-0. Okay, we move on to 5, next meeting announcement. We have 5A, Tuesday, March 6th is the St. Carlos Apache Tribal Council meeting. 5B is the next Board of Regents meeting, March 10th at 5:30. Will folks be able to attend that? Saturday.
And it's like soon. It's like not this Saturday, but the next Saturday.
Okay, let me see here. So this will be, gosh, yeah, you're right.
It's like
It'll be
tomorrow.
next Saturday.
So, if it's March 10th, at 5:30, do we want to look at a different start time?
Yeah, I think so.
That was probably I was updating this the other day because Siri was out, so that's probably just me. Like,
Okay.
not like realizing that Saturdays have a different start time.
Okay, 9 o'clock?
I can do March 10th at 9 o'clock.
Okay. Yep, I can do that too. Marceline?
I don't have my work phone with me. I'll
Okay.
just say yes for now, but,
Okay, tentative?
yeah, because I'm doing
Okay.
a lot of traveling.
Okay. Tolbert, will you be available?
I want to say yes right now, but that's the start of spring break, so I'll be the same as Marcelin and say tentative.
Okay? All right, so I guess Jonathan will reach out if we have a quorum or if we need to reschedule for that day.
Yeah, we'll do a tentative and I'll start reaching out the week of. To go back up one point to the council meeting, I
Uh-huh.
know I went last month, but I was not able to stay for the full meeting. I will not be able to attend this month because I'll be in Las Vegas on business.
Okay? Okay, we go to number 6, executive session. Do we need anything to discuss in executive session?
No, this is Jonathan, I don't have anything.
Do you have anything? Okay. All right,
Just a 5-minute executive session.
and we will go ahead and adjourn the meeting, 8:49
Oh,
PM.
that's our earliest.
Thank you, everyone, good night.
Good night.
Good night.
Thank you, Regents, thank you.